I went to the hospital alone that Monday morning holding a pregnancy test I was afraid to believe. The doctor removed his glasses before speaking, never a good sign. "Your test is negative," he said quietly. "But your blood work shows something else entirely." He stood up as he had an emergency call and left me alone in his office, his computer still open, still glowing. I looked at the screen. And in just 30 seconds, everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my health, and the man waiting for me at home completely collapsed. Take a breath with me before we begin. Before we dive in, drop a quick comment for me. How are you feeling today? In one word. Your perspective might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Just a quick note. Certain details have been adjusted for storytelling. What matters most is the message this story carries. I built my career on the certainty of numbers. As Chief Financial Officer at Meridian Analytics, I made million-dollar decisions with steady hands. At 30, I understood that when you add 2 and 2, you always get 4. No surprises, no variables that couldn't be controlled. But this morning, staring at the 24th pregnancy test, my fingers trembled. The bathroom mirror reflected someone I barely recognized. Dark circles, hair pulled back too tight, the exhaustion that comes from wanting something so desperately that sleep feels like giving up. I'd taken the test standing up, couldn't wait to sit down, and now I stood frozen, watching 2 pink lines materialize, like a promise finally kept. 24 tests, 24 mornings, 23 times one line, the control line that mocked me, that said your body works just enough to tell you it's failing. But this Monday morning in our Gold Coast apartment, with November light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, 2 lines stared back. 2 lines. I pressed my hand against my stomach and felt something I hadn't allowed myself in 6 months: hope. The warm glass of milk sat on the counter where I'd left it half-finished. My husband Matteo had handed it to me 20 minutes earlier, the same morning ritual he'd performed for 2 years. "Calcium and vitamin D," he'd said, kissing my forehead. "Doctor's orders for baby making." At 32, Matteo Farrell moved through the world with the easy confidence of a real estate investor who believed everything would eventually go his way. He closed impossible deals, charmed sellers into low offers, made people trust him within minutes. I trusted him completely. Matteo. I ran toward the kitchen, test clutched in my hand, words already forming. "We did it. It worked. I'm pregnant," but the elevator doors were closing. He was already gone. His text arrived on my phone. "Huge closing today, honey. Can't miss this one. You can handle the appointment, right? Love you." I stared at the message, at the pregnancy test, at the sealed elevator doors. The hope in my chest twisted into something sharper. I wanted to call him, to make him turn around, to share this moment the way I'd imagined, both of us crying, both of us laughing, both of us finally on the other side of wanting. But Matteo had closings. Matteo always had closings. I drove to Northwestern Memorial Hospital alone. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Cold plastic chairs lined the walls beneath fluorescent lights that buzzed at a frequency just barely audible, just barely maddening. I sat with my purse clutched in my lap, the pregnancy test wrapped in tissue in my pocket like a secret I couldn't quite believe. Across from me, a young woman, 22, maybe 23, cradled a sleeping newborn wrapped in a yellow blanket. The baby's face was barely visible, just a small pink nose and rosebud mouth, and the woman stroked the infant's cheek with one finger, in a gesture so tender, it made my throat close. I watched her the way you watch something you're not supposed to want this much. The way her whole body curved around the baby. The way she touched the tiny hand that had escaped the blanket. The way she looked exhausted and radiant and complete. I looked away, clenched my purse tighter, felt the test in my pocket like evidence of something I didn't dare name yet. How many women sit alone in hospital waiting rooms holding hope like broken glass? I thought about the Gold Coast apartment, 2 bedrooms, lake views, the kind of place that said we'd made it. We'd turned the second bedroom into Matteo's home office, filled it with his real estate files and motivational posters about closing deals. But every time I walked past that room, I saw something else. A crib. Soft yellow walls. Myself at 3 in the morning, exhausted and happy, holding a baby who needed me. The silence of our apartment, that's what I wanted broken. By crying, by laughter, by life. I would give everything. I whispered to no one, to the fluorescent lights. Everything to feel that exhaustion, that sleeplessness. Anything for my arms not to be empty. The young woman looked up, met my eyes for half a second, then looked away. Maybe she saw hunger in my face. I turned to the magazines on the side table, parenting magazines, pregnancy magazines, all of them mocking me with headlines about nursery decorating and baby sleep schedules and first trimester nutrition. I'd read them all. I'd planned a life I hadn't been able to create. But this time I thought, touching my pocket. This time. The mathematics of motherhood doesn't balance the way a ledger does. You can't force the equation. You can't manipulate the variables. You just have to wait and want and hope that your body will finally cooperate with your heart. I'd been waiting 2 years. The clock read 9:43 a.m. My appointment was at 9:45. I'd driven here alone, sat here alone, and I would hear whatever Dr. Archer had to tell me alone. Mateo had missed the last 4 appointments, always a closing, always a deal he couldn't reschedule, always apologetic texts. I'd stopped asking him to come. Kezia Farrell. The nurse stood in the doorway with a patient chart. Ruth Hayes, according to her name tag, efficient-looking, kind-voiced, the sort of person who'd seen 1,000 women like me walk through that door. I stood up. My legs felt uncertain, as if they'd forgotten their purpose. The pregnancy test in my pocket suddenly felt heavier. I followed Nurse Hayes down the hall past doors that opened and closed on other people's futures. Examination rooms, consultation offices. The sound of my footsteps on linoleum seemed too loud, too final. I didn't know my future was about to end. I didn't know that in 15 minutes, Dr. Leland Archer would tell me 2 things that would shatter everything I thought I understood about my body, my marriage, and the man who'd handed me warm milk that morning with a smile. Dr. Leland Archer removed his glasses before speaking, and I knew the way you know when falling that I would not like what came next. He was 45, known for his serious demeanor, the kind of fertility specialist who didn't sugarcoat statistics or promise miracles. His office smelled like coffee and paper, with diplomas covering one wall and a small window overlooking the parking garage. The blood test results sat on his desk between us, printed on hospital letterhead that somehow made everything more official, more final. Kezia, he said, and the use of my first name felt too gentle, too careful. Medically, there's nothing preventing you from becoming a mother. Your reproductive system is perfectly normal. I stared at him. The pregnancy test in my pocket suddenly felt like a lie wrapped in tissue paper. Then why? My voice cracked. 24 tests. 2 years. If everything's normal, why can't I? He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Your results came back negative for pregnancy, he said slowly. But there's something else. I can't say it directly. You might want to take a look at my screen while I step out. Because, he interrupted softly, the comprehensive blood panel I ran last month came back this morning. Kezia, you have arsenic in your system. The word hung in the air between us like something physical, something I could touch if I reached out. Arsenic. The poison from old detective novels. The thing you use to kill rats. Not enough to be immediately fatal. Dr. Archer continued, putting his glasses back on as if he couldn't bear to see my face without a barrier. But enough to systematically destroy your endocrine function, your thyroid, your hormones, everything that regulates fertility. The levels suggest consistent low-dose exposure over an extended period, at least 18 months, possibly longer. I tried to process his words, but they kept sliding off my brain like water off glass. Arsenic, systematic, extended period. Someone, I said slowly, testing the word. Someone has been poisoning me. The pattern is unmistakable. This wasn't accidental contamination. The dosing is too consistent, too deliberate. The milk. The thought arrived with absolute clarity. The warm glass Mateo handed me every morning for 2 years. The ritual he never missed. The way he always smiled when I drank it, the way he kissed my forehead and said it was doctor's orders for baby making. I tasted copper in my mouth. The pregnancy test this morning, I whispered. 2 lines. I thought, false positive. Dr. Archer pulled another printout from the stack. Your blood shows exogenous HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, the hormone pregnancy tests detect. But it's not being produced by your body. Someone introduced it externally, probably in whatever delivery system they're using for the arsenic, to make me think I was pregnant. To make you think your body was finally working, yes. How long does it take for trust to curdle into poison? 2 years. 730 mornings. One glass of warm milk at a time. Mateo's face swam in my vision, his smile, his kiss, his careful hands, measuring something into a glass while I showered. I thought of all the mornings I'd thanked him for taking care of me. All the times I'd told him I was lucky to have a husband who cared so much about my health. I need to call the police, Dr. Archer said, reaching for his phone. This is attempted murder. You need to be somewhere safe while… No! The word came out harder than I intended. Not yet. I need to think. I need evidence. What did I need? To go home to the man who'd been slowly killing me, to confront him, to pretend everything was normal while I figured out why. Dr. Archer's phone rang before he could argue. He glanced at the screen, frowned. I need to take this emergency on the ward. 2 minutes. He stood, phone pressed to his ear, already moving toward the door. Don't leave. We're not done discussing. Yes, I'm on my way. He paused in the doorway, turned back. My computer, he said absently, gesturing to the monitor still glowing on his desk. I always forget to turn it off. Lock the door behind me. Then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. I sat alone in his office. The computer screen showed the hospital's patient management system still logged in to Dr. Archer's account. I knew I should look away. I knew I should respect his privacy, his patient's privacy, the boundaries that separated my crisis from everyone else's. But my hand moved to the mouse anyway. The screen showed the VIP maternity ward, high-risk pregnancies, complex cases, women who needed specialist monitoring. I started to close it to respect the boundary I'd already crossed by touching his computer at all. Then I saw the name, Marisol Irvine. I stopped breathing. Marisol Irvine, Mateo's college fiancée, who died in a car accident 4 years ago. The woman whose framed photo sat on our living room shelf next to a small memorial candle Mateo lit every year on the anniversary of her death. The woman whose ashes were in a brass urn in our apartment because Mateo said he couldn't bear to scatter them. The woman whose ghost had haunted the edges of our marriage since the beginning. The dead don't have emergency contacts. The dead don't have 29-week ultrasounds. The dead don't show up in hospital maternity systems with current medical records. My hand clicked on her file before my brain could stop it. Patient Marisol Irvine, 28 years old, gestational week 29, status stable, high-risk pregnancy due to previous complications, regular monitoring required, expected delivery, January 2026. Emergency contact 312555047. I knew that number. I'd memorized it 3 years ago when Mateo gave me his new phone. This one's just for work, he'd said. Don't call unless it's urgent. Clients need a dedicated line. I had never called it. I'd respected his boundaries, his professional life, his need for separation between work and home. But apparently Marisol Irvine had called it. Marisol Irvine, who was supposed to be dead. Marisol Irvine, who was 7 months pregnant. Marisol Irvine, who listed my husband's private number as the person to contact in case of emergency. The emergency contact number glowed on the screen, 10 digits I'd memorized but never used. My breath stopped. The room didn't spin. It simply ceased to exist, narrowed down to those 10 numbers that connected my dead fiancé, haunted husband, to a very much alive, very much pregnant woman whose baby was due in 2 months. I sat in Dr. Archer's chair, staring at a computer screen that had just shown me my husband's entire life was a lie, and realized that I'd been drinking poison for 2 years while he prepared to become a father with someone else. I don't remember the drive home, only that when I unlocked the apartment door, the silence inside felt like walking into a stranger's house. The Gold Coast apartment sat dark at 2:30 in the afternoon. Lake Michigan visible through floor-to-ceiling windows, November gray and infinite. I didn't turn on the lights. I set my purse on the kitchen counter next to the glass Mateo had left in the sink, the one he'd used to mix my morning milk. White residue clung to the bottom. I should have felt something. Terror, grief, rage. But my mind had shifted into the mode I used at work, when I found discrepancies in financial statements, cold methodical hunting for the pattern. My husband had been poisoning me for 2 years. My husband's dead fiancée was 7 months pregnant. My husband had her on speed dial. The numbers didn't add up. I needed more data. The memorial corner sat in our living room, a small white shelf holding a framed photo of Marisol Irvine at 24 frozen before the car accident that supposedly killed her. A brass candle beside the frame. And the pendant. The small silver locket on a delicate chain hanging from a hook on the wall. Mateo had shown it to me on our second date, opened it to reveal the tiny compartment of ash inside. "I can't let her go," he'd said, and I'd found it romantic. 4 years I'd looked at this pendant and felt sorry for a woman who died young. I took it off the hook. The silver felt cold in my palm, heavier than it should be. I carried it to the kitchen, turned on the overhead light, and opened the locket's tiny clasp. The ash inside looked gray and powdery, exactly like cremated remains should look. But I verify everything. I tipped a small amount into a glass of water. Real cremated remains have bone fragments. They're gritty, they settle but don't dissolve. This powder bloomed like flour, turned the water milky gray, floated in suspension, the way baking ingredients do. I touched my finger to the wet powder, brought it to my nose. Faint smell of char, like something burned in a skillet and ground fine. Flour, kitchen flour dressed up with a lighter and a lie. I set down the glass with hands that didn't shake. Opened my desk drawer, where I kept a small toolkit, jeweler's screwdrivers, precision tools for repairing watches. Hobbies I'd taken up during long evenings when Mateo worked late. The pendant's backing unscrewed with the smallest flathead. Inside the hollow chamber where the fake ash sat, something metal gleamed. A GPS tracking chip, the size of a fingernail, battery-powered, transmitting. He had been watching me. Every doctor's appointment, every late-night drive when I couldn't sleep, every time I cried alone in the car because I thought my body was broken. He knew where I was every minute, because I wore his dead fiancé's memorial around my neck at formal dinners. I thought about all the times I'd touched this pendant, all the times I'd felt guilty for resenting a dead woman's place in my marriage. All the times Mateo had smiled when I wore it and said it meant the world to him. The chip was still transmitting. I could see the tiny LED green and steady pulsing once every 3 seconds. I put the pendant back together, hung it on its hook, turned off the kitchen light. Sat in the dark living room with my phone in my hand and no idea who to call. At 7:45, I heard his key in the lock. The lights blazed on. Mateo stood in the doorway with his real estate investor smile tie, loosened jacket over one arm. "Hey, honey. Why are you sitting in the dark?" I looked at him, really looked, trying to see the man who measured arsenic into my morning milk, trying to see the monster wearing my husband's face. But he just looked like Mateo, handsome, concerned, tired from a long day. "How did it go today?" he asked, setting his jacket on the chair. "What did Dr. Archer say?" This was the moment. I could scream. I could throw the pendant at his head. I could call the police and watch his face crumble. But I'm an accountant, and you don't confront fraud suspects until you've documented every transaction, every discrepancy, every piece of evidence that will stand up in court. "Still no good news," I said, and my voice came out steady, tired, resigned. "The same as always. I'm tired, Mateo." His shoulders dropped. Just slightly, just a few degrees. An exhale I might have missed if I wasn't watching for it. Relief. Not sadness, not disappointment that we still couldn't have a baby. Relief that I was still broken, still failing, still trapped in the infertility he'd engineered. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership. Ours was an audit. I didn't know I was failing because the books were cooked from the start. "I'm sorry, babe," he said, sounding genuinely sympathetic. "I know how hard this is for you. Why don't you get some rest? I'll order dinner." I stood, moved past him toward the bedroom. "I'm not hungry, I just want to sleep." "Okay, I love you." I closed the bedroom door without answering. Lay down on top of the covers, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling while television sounds drifted through the walls. Monday night, football announcers' voices rising and falling with plays I couldn't see. In my mind, I opened a new ledger. Mateo was poisoning me. He wanted me infertile. His fiancée was alive and pregnant. Our marriage was a fraud. The discrepancy was catastrophic. The kind that destroys companies, ends careers, sends people to prison. But I'm very good at my job. And this was just another fraud case that needed closing. I waited until Mateo's car pulled out of the parking garage Tuesday morning, counted to 60, then locked myself in the bathroom and turned the tap to full blast. The same bathroom where I'd cried over negative pregnancy tests. The same tile floor where I'd sat with my back against the tub, wondering what was wrong with my body. Now I knew what was wrong: nothing. My body was fine. My husband was the problem. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 6 months. Faye Lockwood answered on the second ring. Kezia, it's been a while. We'd met at a charity gala 3 years ago, bonded over our shared profession. She handled Chicago's ugliest divorces, I handled corporate fraud. Both of us dealt in lies that looked like love on paper. She was 40, ruthlessly competent, known for dismantling prenuptial agreements and finding offshore accounts husbands swore didn't exist. I need help, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. Legal help, divorce help. Are you safe right now? He's at work, I'm alone. Tell me everything. I did. The arsenic in my blood, the fake pregnancy test, Marisol Irvine alive and 7 months pregnant with Mateo's private number as her emergency contact. The GPS chip in the memorial pendant. 2 years of systematic poisoning disguised as morning vitamins and loving care. Faye was silent for 3 seconds. Then, joint accounts. How much whose name is on the Gold Coast property? Is there a prenuptial agreement? No sympathy, no shock. Just tactical questions, delivered in the same tone I used when auditing fraudulent expense reports. It was exactly what I needed, Joint savings had about $127,000, I said. The property was my father's. He put it in my name 2 years ago when he moved to Florida. No prenup. Mateo said it showed I didn't trust him. Check the accounts today. Check the property records. If he's been poisoning you for 2 years, he's been stealing from you too. Don't touch anything yet. Don't let him know you know. Give me 48 hours to pull records and find you a forensic accountant who specializes in boom. I am a forensic accountant. Right, then you know what to look for. Document everything, photograph everything, and Kezia. Yes. Don't drink anything he gives you, not water, not coffee, nothing. I smiled for the first time in 2 days. It wasn't a warm smile. At my office downtown, I locked my door and opened our joint bank accounts on my computer. The same accounts I checked monthly, the same spreadsheets I maintained with religious precision. Joint savings $0. Investment account $0. 2 years of careful budgeting, gone. $127,000. My father had worked 30 years to save that. Mateo had spent it in 6 months. On what? Gambling, hospital bills for his pregnant fiancée. Both. I pulled up Cook County property records, typed in our Gold Coast address. Mortgage filed April 18th, 2025. 6 months ago. I'd been at a conference in Boston that week presenting on fraud detection in real estate transactions. The irony would have been funny if I wasn't the victim. Loan amount $800,000. Lender First Chicago Mortgage Corporation. I clicked through to the scanned documents. Application, income verification, signature page. My signature. Except it wasn't. I've signed my name 10,000 times. I know the exact angle of my K, the way the tail loops back and crosses the downstroke. Whoever forged this signature had tried to copy my driver's license or credit card, the careful, slow signature you use for official documents. But I don't write that way when I'm in a hurry. And the mortgage signature showed someone who'd practiced but never seen me actually sign my name in real time. Following a money trail is like reading a confession written in numbers. You just need to know the language. And I'm fluent. I took screenshots, saved them to an encrypted drive, emailed copies to my personal account with a subject line that looked like spam so Mateo wouldn't notice if he was monitoring my work email. Then I went home. Mateo wouldn't be back until 8. He'd texted that he had evening showings, which meant I had time. I started in the bedroom. His side of the closet, his dresser drawers, the pockets of jackets he wore and didn't wear, looking for what I wasn't sure. Bank statements, love letters, receipts, anything that would tell me who my husband actually was when he wasn't pretending to be mine. In the pocket of his gray wool jacket, the one he wore on weekends, I found a crumpled grocery receipt. La Esperanza Market, 3847 West 26th Street, Little Village, Chicago, dated November 1st, 3 days ago. Milk, eggs, pan dulce, prenatal vitamins. Prenatal vitamins. I turned the receipt over. On the back, someone had written numbers in Mateo's handwriting, 3847 West 26 number 2B, an address or part of one. I pulled out my phone and searched for La Esperanza Market. A small family-owned grocery in Little Village, a Hispanic neighborhood on Chicago's southwest side. Google reviews praise the fresh tortillas, the friendly owner, the way everyone knew each other's names. Best Pan Dulce in Chicago, the owner knows everyone in the neighborhood. If I wanted to find Marisol Irvine, I would start there. Small groceries were like small towns, everyone knew everyone's business. A pregnant woman shopping for two. A handsome husband who visited after dark. People noticed. People talked. I photographed the receipt front and back. Put it back in Mateo's jacket pocket, exactly where I'd found it, smoothed the fabric so he wouldn't notice it had been disturbed. Then I stood in the kitchen holding my phone looking at that address like it was a treasure map. Little Village, 3847 West 26th Street. Tomorrow I would walk into La Esperanza Market, smile at the owner, ask about the neighborhood. Maybe buy some pan dulce. Maybe mention I was thinking of renting nearby. Maybe see who came in while I was there. I had 48 hours before Faye called back with her findings. I wouldn't waste them. The hospital records I'd seen showed Marisol had been admitted 2 days ago for fall-related monitoring. She'd be there for at least another week. The green delivery vest cost $19 at a uniform supply shop on West Madison. I paid cash so there'd be no record. Little Village could wait. I had the address, the grocery store, the neighborhood. But Marisol was in the hospital now, vulnerable and accessible, and hospital records told me she'd been admitted for monitoring after a fall. If I wanted to see my husband's other wife with my own eyes, this was my window. I sat in my car outside Northwestern Memorial at 10:15 Wednesday morning, studying my reflection in the rearview mirror. The delivery vest over jeans and a black shirt. Hair pulled back in a ponytail instead of my usual CFO chignon. No makeup. Comfortable shoes. I looked like someone who carried flowers from minimum wage, not someone who balanced 8-figure budgets. The white rose bouquet sat on my passenger seat, 12 stems, $70 from the florist 2 blocks away. I'd asked for the hospital's most popular arrangement. The florist had wrapped them in clear cellophane with a ribbon that said, "Get well soon." I'd memorized the VIP maternity ward layout from the hospital website. 7th floor, restricted access. But delivery personnel got waved through if they looked confident and carried something expensive. I picked up the flowers and walked through the main entrance like I belonged there. The elevator to the 7th floor smelled like disinfectant and coffee. A doctor stood beside me, scrolling through his phone, not looking up. I held the bouquet at chest height, made myself breathe normally, thought about all the presentations I'd given to hostile board members who wanted to catch me in an error. This was just another performance. The VIP maternity ward doors required a buzzer. I pressed it, held up the flowers to the camera, smiled. The lock clicked open. Inside, the hallway was carpeted instead of linoleum beige with subtle geometric patterns. Soft lighting instead of fluorescence. The nurse's station sat 20 feet ahead, and behind it sat a young woman with brown hair pulled into a messy bun typing on a computer. I walked up to the counter. Delivery for Marisol Irvine, room 714. The nurse, Tindra, according to her name tag, looked up and smiled. She was 26, maybe 27, with the kind of friendly demeanor that suggested she loved her job and loved talking to people. Oh, how lovely! White rose is her favorite. Right down this hall, I'll show you. She came around the counter, led me past rooms with closed doors and soft sounds. Television conversation, a baby crying somewhere distant. My pulse stayed steady. I'd audited Fortune 500 companies. This was just reconnaissance. Room 714 sat at the end of the hall. Tindra knocked gently. "Marisol, flowers for you." A soft voice answered from inside. "Come in." Tindra opened the door, stepped aside to let me pass, then returned to her station. I walked into my husband's second life. Marisol Irvine sat propped up in the hospital bed, pillows behind her back, 7 months pregnant, in a loose blue maternity dress. She was 27, younger than I'd imagined from the framed photo at home. Beautiful in a fragile way, with dark hair falling past her shoulders and brown eyes that held exhaustion and warmth in equal measure. She was real, not a name on a screen, not a ghost from Mateo's past. A real woman with my husband's reading glasses on her nightstand. She smiled when she saw the flowers. "They're beautiful. My husband knows white roses are my favorite. He's at work, but he thinks of everything." Her husband, our husband. I forced my voice to stay neutral, professional. Where would you like them? By the window. Perfect, thank you. She shifted slightly, one hand resting on her swollen belly. I've been here 3 days. The flowers make it feel less like a hospital. I set the bouquet on the windowsill, taking my time arranging the stems, while my eyes scanned the room with the same systematic attention I used for financial audits. Beige trench coat on the coat rack by the door, navy slippers beside the bed. 3 silver-framed photographs on the nightstand, Marisol and Mateo at a beach I didn't recognize at a restaurant I'd never been to, standing in front of a brownstone building with his arm around her waist. His reading glasses, the tortoiseshell ones I'd bought him for Christmas 2 years ago. Except I had definitely seen those same glasses on our coffee table this morning. He'd bought 2 pairs. I had balanced ledgers worth millions, but I couldn't reconcile the numbers in this room: 1 husband, 2 homes, 0 truth. He must be very excited about the baby, I said, still facing the flowers, keeping my voice light. He is. We've been trying for so long. Her voice held the same exhausted hope I'd carried for 2 years. The doctors kept saying nothing was wrong, but month after month. And now, finally, after 3 years, we're going to be parents. 3 years, the same timeline as my marriage to Mateo. While I was drinking poisoned milk and taking negative pregnancy tests, she was getting pregnant with his child. That's wonderful, I said and turned back to face her. I hope everything goes smoothly. Thank you. The monitoring is just precautionary. I had a little fall at home, but the baby's fine. She touched her belly again, protective. My husband worries too much, but I guess that's what makes him a good partner. A good partner. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that her devoted husband was currently at a real estate closing, or so he'd told me this morning, while maintaining 2 complete lives with surgical precision. But I wasn't here to detonate bombs. I was here to gather evidence. I should let you rest, I said, moving toward the door. Thank you for the flowers. They're perfect. I paused at the threshold, my hand on the doorframe. On the coat rack by the door hung the beige Burberry trench coat Mateo wore every autumn. Except his was hanging in our Gold Coast closet right now. I'd seen it this morning when I got dressed. This one was identical, same size, same fabric, same monogrammed cuff with his initials, MF. He hadn't bought one and hidden it. He'd bought 2, one for each life, one for each wife. I walked out of room 714 with my delivery vest and empty hands past Nurse Tindra, who smiled and thanked me for brightening someone's day, into the elevator that descended 7 floors while my mind cataloged everything I'd seen. 2 trench coats, 2 pairs of reading glasses, 2 homes, 2 wives. How many more things came in pairs? I didn't leave the hospital immediately. Instead, I lingered by the nurse's station, pretending to adjust the flower delivery receipt while Tindra filed paperwork. She looked up, smiled. Those roses really brightened her day. She's been here almost a week. It gets lonely. Her husband doesn't visit. I kept my voice casual, curious, but not invasive. Oh, he does every single night after 10 o'clock. Never misses even with his demanding real estate job. Tindra's face lit up with the kind of admiration nurses reserve for genuinely devoted spouses. He stays until midnight sometimes, reads to her, brings her favorite foods from home. We all wish more partners were that dedicated. Every night, after 10, I did the math automatically the way accountants do. 2 years of marriage, 730 nights, 730 times Mateo had texted me at 9:45, saying he was stuck at a late meeting, or at the gym, or showing a property to difficult clients. 730 times I'd left the bedside lamp on, fallen asleep alone, woken up to find him sliding into bed, smelling like mint toothpaste, and saying he was sorry he'd make it up to me. He had been making it up to someone else, every night, for 2 years. That's remarkable dedication, I said, and my voice didn't shake. Right, some guys say they'll be there and never show, but Mr. Farrell, he's the real deal. Mr. Farrell? She knew his name. Of course she did. He'd been coming here every night for a week, being charming and devoted and perfect. How many women wait at home while their husbands build second lives? How many leave lamps on for men who will never come home on time? Well, I said I should get going. More deliveries. Tindra waved as I walked to the elevator. I pressed the button, descended 7 floors, walked through the lobby and into the November cold with my empty hands and my full ledger of lies. 730 nights. I went home and made a plan. The next morning, Thursday, I returned to the yellow apartment building in Little Village with a different bouquet, pink carnations, this time wrapped in pale green paper. I'd gotten the address from Marisol's patient intake form glimpsed on Tindra's desk when she stepped away to answer a call, the next of kin address field clearly visible. Third floor, Unit 2B, the same numbers scrawled on the back of the grocery receipt. The building smelled like cooking onions and garlic and something sweet. Salsa music drifted from an apartment on the second floor. Children's voices echoed in the stairwell. I knocked on 2B. Marisol opened the door, no longer in a hospital gown, but in loose gray sweatpants and an oversized blue sweater. She looked surprised, then confused. "I'm so sorry," I said, holding up the carnations. "I think I delivered the wrong arrangement yesterday. White roses were supposed to go to another patient. These are yours." Her face cleared. "Oh, well, they were beautiful anyway. Come in, let me get those for you." She stepped aside and I walked into my husband's other life. The apartment was smaller than our Gold Coast place, but warm in a way ours had never been. Cream-colored walls. Photographs everywhere, Marisol and Mateo at Navy Pier, at a vineyard standing in front of this building with keys in hand. A soft brown couch. Knitted blankets draped over chairs. Home. This was someone's home. Marisol moved to the kitchen counter where the white roses sat in a glass vase. "They're still fresh. Do you want them back or—" "Keep them," I said. "My mistake, you might as well enjoy them." "That's sweet. Would you like to see the nursery? I'm so excited I show everyone." She laughed, one hand on her belly. "Sorry pregnancy makes you shameless." "I'd love to." She led me down a short hallway to a room painted sky blue. White crib in the corner. Wooden mobile hanging above it with felt clouds and silver stars. A changing table stocked with diapers and wipes. Pale yellow curtains filtering morning light. And by the window, a rocking chair. Light wood, cream cushion, elegant curved arms. I knew that chair. I'd seen the charge on our credit card statement 3 months ago. $800. When I'd asked, Mateo had said he'd ordered new waiting chairs for his office, wanted something nicer for high-end clients. I had asked him, begged him to assemble a bookshelf I'd ordered last year. He said he didn't have time, but he had time for this crib. Every screw, every corner. Perfect. His daddy put the crib together, Marisol said, running her hand along the white railing. It took him all evening. He was so careful. If even one screw was missing, he'd turn the world upside down. He sounds very devoted. He is. Her voice went soft. I know some people think I'm crazy for forgiving him after everything. But he's changed. He's here. He's building this life with me. Forgiving him after everything. What did that mean? What had happened before? "We're naming him Kai," she continued, pointing to wooden letters mounted on the wall above the crib. K-A-I. It means ocean in Hawaiian. My husband chose it. The letters were painted white, hung perfectly level. He'd measured. He'd drilled. He'd made this room beautiful. At our Gold Coast apartment, the bathroom light fixture had been broken for 6 months. I'd asked him to fix it 3 times. He kept saying he'd get to it eventually. "It's lovely," I said, and I meant it. The room was lovely. The life he'd built here was lovely. The lie was so complete it had furniture. "Thank you." Marisol smiled, tired but genuine. "I should probably rest. The doctor said to take it easy." "Of course, I'll let you go." I walked back through the cream-colored living room, past the photographs of their life together, past the knitted blankets and the home he'd made for her, while I sat alone in a silent apartment, waiting for him to come back from meetings that never existed. K-A-I. I stared at those 3 letters until they blurred. He had chosen them. He had painted these walls, and I had spent 2 years believing his grief was real. Eventually was here. In this room. In this life. Not mine. The magnifying glass I used for examining forged signatures sat on my desk. I'd used it to catch embezzlers before, never imagined I'd need it to catch my husband. Thursday evening. The Gold Coast apartment was silent. Mateo had texted an hour ago, "Late showing in Evanston, don't wait up." By now I knew what that meant. He was in Little Village, reading to Marisol, stroking her pregnant belly, whispering promises to his son. I sat at my home office desk with the memorial pendant laid open under the magnifying glass, the fake ash I'd already tested. But something about the weight still bothered me. Empty silver shouldn't feel this heavy. I used the smallest screwdriver from my toolkit, the one meant for watch repair. Carefully pried beneath the false bottom of the pendant's chamber past the layer where the kitchen flour had been stored. The metal backing popped free. Underneath, embedded in a custom-cut hollow, active transmitting recording. He had been tracking me. Not trusting tracking, like inventory, like an asset he needed to monitor while he liquidated it. I thought about every place I'd worn this pendant. Charity galas where Matteo had smiled and introduced me as his devoted wife. Doctor's appointments where I'd cried about infertility while he knew exactly where I was, down to the GPS coordinates. Late night drives when I couldn't sleep, when I'd pulled into parking lots and sat alone trying to understand why my body wouldn't cooperate. He had watched it all, every movement, every location, every moment I thought I was alone. The violation went deeper than the poison. The poison was slow murder. This was surveillance, control, the systematic elimination of privacy while I wore his lies around my neck and thought I was honoring a dead woman. I photographed the chip from 6 angles, documented the serial number, researched the model online commercial-grade GPS tracker, real-time monitoring 2-year battery life transmits to paired smartphone app every 60 seconds. 2 years, the same timeline as the poisoning. I carefully reassembled the pendant, put it back on the memorial shelf, let the green light keep pulsing. Let him think I still didn't know. Friday morning at 9 o'clock, I sat across from Faye in her downtown office on Wacker Drive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago River. Her desk was organized chaos files, highlighters, sticky notes, 3 monitors displaying legal databases. She slid a thick folder across the polished wood surface. 48 hours, she said. Here's what I found. I opened the folder. Bank statements, wire transfer records, corporate filings. 3 shell companies, Faye continued tapping the first document, registered in Delaware operating accounts in the Cayman Islands. Your husband has been moving money offshore for 18 months. The joint account you thought had $127,000. He drained it 6 months ago through a series of transfers disguised as real estate investments. I flipped through the statements, recognized my forged signature on transfer authorizations, and this. Faye pulled a second document. Gambling debts. $1.8 million owed to a man named Xander Jarvis. They call him the Shadow. He operates high-stakes poker games in private clubs. Very illegal, very dangerous. Payment due in 30 days. $1.8 million. The number sat on the page like a death sentence. Matteo doesn't have that kind of money, I said. No, but you do. Or you will. Faye pulled up a property assessment on her screen. The Gold Coast apartment. Your father transferred it to your name 2 years ago. Current market value $2.3 million. With the $800,000 mortgage Matteo forged, that leaves $1.5 million in equity. Still not enough to cover the debt. Which is where Marisol comes in. Faye slid a third document across a trust agreement thick with legal language and notary seals. Her maternal grandfather established a $2 million trust when she was born. It's been sitting in probate for 5 years since he died. But here's the mechanism the money activates only when she gives birth to a child with a legally acknowledged father. I stared at the trust document, scanned the conditions, read it twice to make sure I understood. The baby, I said slowly, it's not about being a father, it's about unlocking the money. Exactly. When that child is born and Matteo signs the birth certificate as Father Marisol gets $2 million, which I'm guessing Matteo has already convinced her he needs for some emergency. Maybe to pay off your medical bills. Maybe to invest in a business opportunity. Maybe he'll just take it and say it's for the baby's future. I'd spent my career following money trails, but I'd never imagined the trail would lead through my own bedroom, my own womb, to a baby I'd never meet. Let me make sure I understand, I said, and my voice sounded distant, clinical. Matteo marries me to access my father's property, mortgages it without my knowledge, drains our joint accounts, all while maintaining a second marriage to Marisol. He poisons me to keep me infertile so I won't complicate the inheritance. Meanwhile, he gets Marisol pregnant so he can access her grandfather's trust when the baby's born. That's the structure, yes. How much does he need total? Faye did the math on a legal pad. Gambling debt $1.8 million. Living expenses maintaining 2 households, probably $300,000 over 2 years. The mortgage he took $800,000, which he's likely already spent. Total exposure roughly $3 million. Your property equity plus Marisol's trust $3.5 million. He walks away with $500,000 profit after paying the shadow. The baby isn't a child to him, it's a key. A $2 million key to unlock a vault. Correct. $2 million. Faye slid the trust document across her desk so I could read the fine print. Locked until the child is born and paternity acknowledged. I looked at the number. I had balanced bigger ledgers, closed larger deals, but I had never seen a price tag on a baby before. And I had never understood until that moment that I was worth more dead than pregnant. Faye's hand moved to a second file folder on her desk. This one marked with a red pharmaceutical warning label I recognized from corporate compliance training. There's more, she said. The arsenic didn't appear by magic. Someone procured it. Someone with enough medical knowledge to dose it correctly slowly enough to avoid detection. She opened the file. Inside chemical purchase orders from an unlicensed pharmaceutical supplier. Small batch specialty chemicals, the kind you can't get at regular pharmacies. Buyer name printed in clear block letters Zenobia Farrell. My mother-in-law. Arsenic trioxide, Faye said, running her finger down the order history. Small doses, every 6 months for 2 years. The dates align perfectly with your fertility timeline. I stared at the name. Zenobia Farrell. 60 years old, clinging to faded aristocratic pretensions, always mentioning her family's old money and proper breeding. She'd sat at my dining table every Sunday for 3 years, ate the meals I cooked. I complimented my roast chicken, asked with concerned eyes and a sympathetic hand on my arm when I would finally give her son a child. She had ordered the poison that guaranteed I never would. While I was making her son's breakfast, I said, my voice flat. While she was asking about my fertility appointments, she was ordering the doses. The supplier confirmed it, cash payments, delivered to a P.O. box in her name. His mother, the woman who'd taught him to say grace before dinner, who'd cried at our wedding, who'd actually asked if I'd considered acupuncture for fertility herbal supplements, maybe seeing a specialist in holistic medicine. She was the one measuring the doses. This isn't just Mateo, I said, this is organized. Yes, which is why we need to be organized too. Monday morning, Faye walked me into Chicago PD District 18 on the near north side. Economic Crimes Division, 3rd floor. Fluorescent lights and the smell of coffee that had been sitting too long. Inspector Benedict Dunn sat behind a desk covered with case files, a framed photo of 2 young kids and a coffee mug that said, "World's okayest dad." He was 34 younger than I'd expected for someone handling complex fraud cases. Widowed for 2 years, Faye had told me in the car. Raising 2 kids alone while working homicide-adjacent financial crimes. He looked up when we entered, tired eyes but sharp. The kind of tired that comes from too much responsibility, not too little competence. Inspector Dunn, Faye said. This is the client I mentioned, Kezia Farrell, the systematic poisoning case. Benedict shook my hand. His grip was firm, professional. Sit, please. Walk me through the timeline. Start from the first symptom you noticed. I sat in the hard plastic chair across from his desk and told him everything. 2 years of infertility. The warm milk ritual. The diagnosis last week, arsenic poisoning, systemic and deliberate. The discovery of Marisol Irvine, supposedly dead, actually pregnant. The GPS chip in the memorial pendant. The forged mortgage on my property. The offshore accounts. The gambling debt. The trust fund that activated only when the baby was born. And Zenobia, my mother-in-law, ordering poison every 6 months. Benedict took notes. Didn't interrupt. Didn't react with shock or sympathy. Just methodical documentation, the way I document financial discrepancies during an audit. I had audited Fortune 500 companies, found discrepancies worth millions, but I'd never caught a criminal conspiracy in my own family tree. When I finished, he set down his pen, looked at Faye, looked at me. Your husband's mother knew about Marisol, he said. It wasn't a question. She had to. The timeline is too precise. The arsenic started exactly when Mateo began visiting Marisol every night. Someone was coordinating. And your husband's brother forged the mortgage documents. The signature analysis suggests a family member, someone who'd seen my handwriting but didn't know my personal patterns. Benedict leaned back in his chair. This isn't one man committing fraud. This is organized family conspiracy. Mother procuring poison, brother forging documents, husband executing the scheme while maintaining 2 households. Can you arrest them? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. then removed his reading glasses. The gesture reminded me of Dr. Archer right before he'd told me about the arsenic. "I can," Benedict said. "But let me ask you a better question. Do you want to arrest him now or arrest him right? What's the difference? Now means I pull him in today. Quick satisfaction. You get to watch him panic. But his lawyers get him out on bail within 48 hours. He hires a good defense team, claims the arsenic was accidental contamination, says the mortgage was a misunderstanding, blames his mother for acting without his knowledge. We might convict him. We might not." He leaned forward, hands flat on the desk. "Right means we build the perfect case, document everything, get witness statements from Marisol, coordinate with the district attorney, freeze his accounts so he can't flee, arrest him, his mother, and anyone else involved simultaneously. When we move, it's airtight, no bail, no escape, maximum consequences." Faye was watching me. Benedict was watching me, both waiting to see if I wanted revenge or justice. I'd spent my career closing deals, waiting for the right numbers, the right timing, the perfect moment when all variables aligned and the contract became unbreakable. "Right," I said. The word came out cold, clear, final. "Let's do it right. I've closed bigger deals than this. I know how to wait for the perfect numbers." Benedict nodded, the kind of nod that meant he'd seen enough victims become survivors to recognize the transformation. "Then we coordinate," he said. "Evidence collection, witness statements, financial forensics. When we move, he won't see it coming." He opened a fresh case file, blue folder, blank forms, wrote my name at the top in careful block letters. Complainant Kezia Farrell. Case type attempted murder, financial fraud, conspiracy. And for the first time in 2 years, I smiled. It wasn't warm, but it was real. I arrived at the office at 6:30 Tuesday morning, an hour before the earliest colleague, 2 hours before Matteo would wake up and check his accounts. That smile from yesterday was still there. Not warm, not kind, but real. The smile of someone who'd stopped being a victim and started being a hunter. My CFO office overlooked downtown Chicago floor-to-ceiling windows, showing the city's still dark streetlights reflecting off the river. 3 monitors glowed on my desk. Faye's written strategy sat beside my keyboard, 47 numbered steps, each one documented, each one legal, each one irreversible. Benedict's case number was written on my notepad. Cold coffee from yesterday sat in my company mug. I opened the banking systems, property databases, company financial access portals, every digital system where Matteo's name appeared with mine. 3 screens, 6 accounts, 47 steps in Faye's plan. I'd closed quarterly audits worth billions, presented findings to hostile boards, found discrepancies that brought down executives. This was just another closing. I took a deep breath. The office smelled like carpet cleaner and old coffee. Outside, the city was silent. Inside, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. He was still asleep in our bed. In 90 minutes, he'd wake up, make his coffee, check his phone, maybe try to transfer money offshore before leaving for his fake real estate appointments. The accounts wouldn't be there. I am very good at my job. And this is the most important audit I'll ever close. Step 1. Joint savings account. I pulled up the account details, balance already 0 from his previous theft, but the account itself was still active, still available for him to use for future transfers. I clicked Freeze Account, entered my authorization code, reason suspected fraud, effective immediately. Red banner appeared across the screen, account frozen pending investigation. Step 2, joint checking, same process. Click Authorize, Freeze. Step 3, investment accounts. 3 of them, all showing 0 balances where 6 months ago we'd had careful savings. Click Authorize, Freeze. Frozen. The word appeared in red across 6 different screens. 6 accounts he thought were his escape route. All locked, all documented, all evidence. Steps 4 through 12. Company access. This was where being CFO mattered. Where the professional authority Matteo thought gave him access to company resources became the weapon that locked him out. I pulled up our corporate financial system, found Matteo's employee profile. He'd convinced me 3 years ago to add him as a contractor for real estate consulting services. It gave him access to our corporate banking portal, our credit cards, our vendor payment system. I revoked it all. Company account access revoked. Authority level none. Corporate card 9921 cancelled. Vendor portal access denied. Each red alert was a door slamming shut. He thought being married to a CFO gave him access to money to accounts to credibility he could exploit. He forgot it also gave me authority. Complete documented, unquestionable authority. Steps 13 through 28 Property alerts. I contacted the Cook County Property Office through their fraud reporting portal. Attached the forensic signature analysis showing the forged mortgage. Requested immediate freeze on any transfer sale or additional liens on my Gold Coast property. Property alert filed. Mortgage fraud investigation initiated. That money wasn't going anywhere. I had spent 2 years being poisoned one breakfast at a time. This morning I poisoned his plans one keystroke at a time. The doses were precise, the outcome certain. Steps 29 through 46, the surgical strikes. Freezing his personal accounts I'd discovered through Faye's investigation. Alerting his shell company's banks to suspected fraud. Tagging every offshore transfer as suspicious. I worked methodically, no emotion, no hesitation, just the cold precision of an accountant closing a fraudulent ledger. 7 o'clock arrived. The sun started turning Chicago's buildings gold. My phone buzzed text from Faye, status. I typed back, steps 1 to 46 complete, beginning 47 now. Step 47 was the masterpiece. The $800,000 mortgage Mateo had forged on my property. The money he'd stolen using my father's equity was sitting in a frozen escrow account pending investigation. According to Faye's legal maneuvering, that money could be transferred to a court-approved trust for the benefit of victims and dependents affected by the fraud. I opened the new trust account Faye had established yesterday. Read the beneficiary names typed in official legal language. Beneficiary 1 Marisol Irvine, victim of ongoing fraud. Beneficiary 2 Kai Irvin, minor child born. January 2026 anticipated. Trustee Faye Lockwood, attorney at law. Purpose: child support, medical expenses, and victim restitution. Trust type: irrevocable. Protected from creditor claims including but not limited to gambling debts owed to Xander Jarvis. I initiated the transfer. $800,000. My father's equity. The money Mateo stole to fund his double life and pay his gambling debts. Now it would feed the child he'd planned to abandon. Pay for Marisol's hospital bills. Ensure that baby Kai had a future even if his father went to prison. The transfer processed. Green confirmation banner, transaction complete. 7:17 a.m. I sat back in my chair. Looked at the 3 monitors all showing the same pattern of frozen accounts and completed transfers. 47 steps, 47 minutes. Every entry, every exit, every variable accounted for. Outside my office window, Chicago was waking up. Cars appearing on the streets, lights coming on in buildings, sunrise turning the river gold. Mateo would wake up soon too. Try his morning coffee, check his phone, maybe attempt to transfer money before heading to Little Village or to whatever fake real estate showing he'd invented. Every account would show the same word, frozen. Every card would decline. Every door I'd left open for 2 years I'd closed in 47 minutes. I closed the laptop, stood up, stretched my back. Chapter 3 was complete. Time to write Chapter 4. The gray suit hanging in my closet was the one I'd worn to close the Riverside deal. $3.2 million, 47 pages of contracts, and I didn't blink once. Friday morning. 3 days since I'd frozen Mateo's accounts. 3 days of him trying to figure out why his cards were declining, why his corporate access was revoked, why the mortgage company was calling about fraud investigation. 3 days of watching him panic while I smiled and poured his coffee. I took the suit off of the hanger. Gray wool, tailored, professional. The armor I wore when presenting to hostile boards when closing deals that other CFOs said were impossible. No delivery uniform this time, no fake flowers, no hiding. I dressed slowly, methodically. Pinned my hair back the way I did for board meetings. Light makeup just enough to look polished, not enough to look like I was trying. Pearl earrings my father had given me when I made CFO. On my bed, I'd laid out my evidence portfolio. Black leather, the kind I used for financial presentations. Inside, marriage certificate. Red cover, official seal, 42 pages of legal documentation. Dr. Archer's blood test results showing arsenic levels. Recent photographs with Mateo selfies from last week dated and geotagged. screenshots of the GPS tracking chip's data, documentation of the financial freeze, a small digital recorder. I've presented to hostile boards before. This is just another audit, except the fraud is my marriage. I picked up the portfolio, looked at myself in the full-length mirror. Chief Financial Officer, poisoning victim, fraud investigator, wife. Which role was I playing today? All of them. Northwestern Memorial Hospital looked different when I walked through the front entrance at 10:15 a.m., wearing a business suit instead of a delivery vest. The security guard nodded. The receptionist smiled. No one questioned my purpose. I took the elevator to the 7th floor, VIP maternity ward. The doors opened on familiar carpeted hallway, soft lighting the nurse's station, where Tindra sat typing on her computer. She looked up when I approached. Her face registered confusion. I could see her trying to place me. The delivery woman, but not in uniform. Same face, wrong context. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Visiting hours just started." "I'm here to see Marisol Irvine," I said. "She knows me." Tindra's confusion deepened, but she nodded. "Room 714, down the hall. No more delivery uniforms, no more fake names, no more reconnaissance." This was the moment every piece of evidence had been building toward. I walked down the hallway, portfolio in hand, heart steady. I'd faced boardrooms full of executives trying to catch me in accounting errors. I'd presented findings that ended careers, that changed companies, that moved millions of dollars. This was just truth, documented, undeniable. I knocked on room 714. "Come in." Marisol sat in the hospital bed, propped up on pillows. She wore the same blue maternity sweater from last week. Her belly was enormous. She looked ready to deliver any day now, not 2 months from now. When she saw me, her face registered the same confusion Tindra had shown. "Emily, the delivery woman." She looked at my suit. Sorry, I thought. "Can I sit?" I gestured to the chair by her bed. "Sure, but what are you doing here? Did I get more flowers?" I sat, set the portfolio on the hospital table between us, opened it, pulled out the marriage certificate with its red cover and official seal. "My name isn't Emily," I said, kept my voice level, professional. "My name is Kezia Farrell. I'm Matteo Farrell's wife." The words hung in the air like smoke. Marisol stared at me. "What?" "Not ex-wife, wife, currently married for 3 years. Her face went pale. "No, he said he told me you were divorced, that you're crazy, obsessed with him, that you stalk him and—" "I know what he told you." I slid the marriage certificate across the table. "But here's the documentation. Marriage license dated October 2022. No divorce decree, no legal separation, just 2 signatures and a ceremony." She picked up the certificate with trembling hands, started flipping through pages. "And here." I placed the dated photographs on the table. "These are from last Sunday, November 10th. Him and me at the farmer's market. His arm around my waist. This one's from Wednesday, him making dinner in our kitchen. This one's from yesterday morning, him sleeping in our bed." Marisol's breathing got faster. She kept flipping pages. "He said you were dangerous," she whispered. "That you've been following him, calling him, threatening." "I was being poisoned," I said. Pulled out Dr. Archer's blood test results. "Arsenic, for 2 years, in the milk he gave me every morning. The same morning he told you he was at work or showing properties. The same nights he visited you here at the hospital after 10 p.m., he was sleeping in my bed by midnight." She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She just kept turning the pages, looking for the divorce that would make me the liar instead of him. Page after page, legal boilerplate, witnessing clauses, state regulations, marriage covenant, property agreements. No dissolution, no divorce decree, no separation agreement. 42 pages long. 41 were blank legal forms. 1 had our names, our signatures, our wedding date 3 years ago. 0 pages showed we'd ever stopped being married. She turned page 20, page 25, page 30. Her hands shook harder with each blank sheet. I pulled out one more document. "This is the GPS tracking chip data. From the pendant he said contained his dead fiancé's ashes. Except you're not dead, and the ashes were flour, and the chip has been tracking my every movement for 2 years." Page 35, page 40, page 42. She stopped on the last page, looked up at me. Her lips moved, but no sound came out, then barely a whisper. "There's no divorce." "No," he said. I know what he said. Her hands were still trembling, still holding the marriage certificate like it might change if she looked away. "I'm 7 months pregnant," she said, "with his child. He told me he promised." "I know." I kept my voice steady, professional, the way I delivered bad news to executives. "I've been trying to get pregnant for 2 years. Couldn't understand why it wasn't working. Turns out the breakfast he was making me every morning contained arsenic, systematic poisoning disguised as loving care." She looked at the blood test results, at the GPS screenshots, at the photographs dated from this week. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just kept turning pages, searching for something that would make sense, something that would make him the good guy and me the villain. But every page was blank. She set down the marriage certificate, looked at me with eyes that had gone from shock to something harder. "I'm not calling security," she said. I waited. "I'm calling my lawyer." She picked up her phone from the nightstand, dialed a number she clearly had memorized, held it to her ear while maintaining eye contact with me. "Faye," she said when someone answered, "I need you at Northwestern Memorial, room 714, now. It's an emergency." She hung up, set the phone down between us like a declaration of war. "He called me paranoid," Marisol said, her voice steady now clinical. "When I questioned the bank statements, when I asked why he was always at work until midnight." "What did he call you?" "Insecure, controlling, every time I asked about his whereabouts." "He told me you were crazy, obsessed with him, that you'd been stalking him since the divorce. He told me you were dead, showed me your memorial every single day for 3 years." We stared at each other across the hospital bed. Two women who'd been told we were the problem. Two women who'd believed the lie because the liar was so convincing. "The overseas contract," Marisol said. "He told you about it too. 3 years running, always extending, always one more month until he'd be home full-time. He told me the same thing." She laughed, sharp, bitter. "We've been living parallel lives in the same city. He's been playing us both like we're too stupid to notice." "Not anymore." I pulled out my notebook. "I've been documenting everything for 6 weeks. Every lie, every timeline discrepancy, every financial transaction." Marisol reached for the arsenic test results, read them slowly. "He's been poisoning you for 2 years so I'd stay infertile, so I wouldn't complicate his access to my property while getting me pregnant." Her hand went to her belly. "So he could access my grandfather's trust." "Do you have a plan?" she asked. I met her eyes. "Yes, but I need you." She didn't hesitate. "What do we do?" The fluorescent hospital lights buzzed overhead, sterile witness to the birth of a conspiracy. Faye Lockwood arrived 47 minutes later. I recognized her from our previous meeting, sharp suit, sharper eyes, legal pad already in hand. She looked at me, looked at Marisol, looked at the marriage certificate side by side on the hospital table. "Well," she said, "this is new. Can we talk somewhere private?" I asked. Marisol was already pulling out her discharge papers. "I'm leaving AMA, against medical advice. I'm stable enough, and I need to get out of here before he shows up for his nightly visit." 30 minutes later, we sat around the kitchen table in Marisol's little village apartment. The same apartment I'd visited as a fake delivery woman. The same nursery with the crib Mateo had assembled. Now it was a war room. Faye spread documents across the table. My marriage certificate, Marisol's marriage certificate, bank statements, the GPS tracking data, photographs. "This is bigamy," Faye said, "clear cut. But combined with the financial fraud, the poisoning, the forged mortgage, this is felony-level conspiracy." "What about his gambling debt?" I asked. "Can we use that?" "Absolutely. If the debt is to loan sharks, we're potentially looking at RICO charges, organized criminal activity." Marisol leaned forward. "I want him to feel what we felt, the shock, the betrayal, the moment the floor disappears." "Then we need to be strategic," Faye said. "We file simultaneously in 2 counties. He can't be in 2 courtrooms at once. We coordinate with police. We make sure every exit is blocked before he knows we're moving." "Before I tell you what we plan next, are you still with me?" Comment. A, if you think this alliance will work, or B, if Mateo will discover it, and tell me why in 5 words. A quick note: what follows includes some recreated dialogue for narrative impact. The lesson is what matters. When I asked, "Thanksgiving," Marisol said. Her voice was cold, certain. "November 27th. He always makes a big deal about Thanksgiving, talks about family and gratitude and being blessed. Let's give him something to be grateful for. Faye nodded. Thanksgiving works. He'll be relaxed, distracted, thinking both of you are in your separate homes cooking being domestic. He won't see it coming. GPS spoofing, I said, pointing to the tracking data. He's been monitoring my movements through that pendant. We can feed him false data, make him think I'm exactly where he expects me to be. While you're actually coordinating the trap, Faye finished. I like it. Marisol stood up, walked to a drawer in the kitchen, pulled out a small burner phone. He keeps this in the garage. I saw it once. He said it was for emergencies. That's evidence, Faye said. We'll need that. He has one at our place too, I said, hidden in his toolbox. We spent 2 hours planning, every detail, every contingency. Faye took notes in her precise legal handwriting, occasionally stopping us to clarify timeline or verify facts. The trap had 3 phases. Phase 1. GPS spoofing to create false location data. Make Mateo think both women are exactly where they're supposed to be. Phase 2. Simultaneous confrontation at both locations. Police and attorney present. No escape routes. Phase 3 arrests, divorce filings, asset freezes, complete legal destruction. 12 days, Faye said, looking at her calendar. Can you both maintain normal behavior for 12 days? Marisol and I looked at each other. I've been drinking poison for 2 years, I said. I can pretend for 12 more days. I've been married to a ghost for 3 years, Marisol said. 12 days is nothing. Faye closed her legal pad. Then we have a plan. Outside the apartment window, the first snow of the season began to fall, soft and quiet, covering the streets of Little Village in white. Marisol stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the snow, then turned back to face us. He wanted 2 wives, she said. Let's give him 2 plaintiffs. I smiled. Not the fake smile I'd been giving Mateo for weeks, a real one. Thanksgiving, I said. November 27th, he'll walk into both homes expecting gratitude and turkey. Instead, he'll find police process servers and the wives who disappeared his future, Faye finished. We shook hands across the kitchen table. 3 women, 2 marriage certificates, 1 conspiracy. 12 days until Thanksgiving. 12 days until Mateo Farrell learned what happens when you underestimate the women you've been playing. 12 days. The number felt both infinite and impossibly short. Sunday morning, 4:47 a.m. I wheeled Marisol past the nurse's station at Northwestern Memorial, her discharge papers in my hand, Dr. Archer's signature at the bottom. Tindra looked up from her computer. Her eyes registered the wheelchair, the early hour, the paperwork that shouldn't exist. Mrs. Irvine, she said, standing. You understand you're leaving against medical advice. Your concussion protocol isn't complete. We haven't cleared you for... I understand perfectly, Marisol interrupted. Her voice was steady despite the wheelchair. I'm safer at home than I am here. The lie tasted like copper in my mouth. She wasn't going home. She was going underground. Tindra looked at the discharge papers. Dr. Archer signed off on this. Call him if you need to verify, I said. Kept my voice professional calm. We're leaving now. What Tindra didn't know, Faye had spent Friday afternoon with hospital counsel, threatening liability, explaining that detaining a competent adult who wanted to leave was false imprisonment, reminding them that Marisol had come in for monitoring, not incarceration. Dr. Archer's signature was real, but it wasn't given willingly. It was legal coercion wrapped in hospital policy. Tindra stepped aside. You'll need to sign the final AMA form. Marisol signed with a steady hand. I pushed the wheelchair toward the elevator, kept my pace measured, unhurried, like we had every right to be leaving at dawn on a Sunday morning. The elevator descended, underground parking. My car waited in visitor slot B47, engine already running via remote start. I helped Marisol into the passenger seat. She moved slowly, 7 months pregnant and discharged too early, but she moved. He'll call the hospital today, she said as I pulled out of the parking garage. When I don't answer my phone, when he can't reach me. Let him call. They'll tell him you were discharged, that you went home. But I'm not home. No, you're somewhere he can't find you, somewhere his GPS can't track, somewhere safe. 2 days between hospital discharge and trap activation, 48 hours to maintain the performance of ignorance while the noose tightens. Tuesday evening. The Little Village apartment kitchen table had become my technical workstation. Laptop open. GPS spoofing software installed, provided by Faye's private investigator, the kind of tool normally reserved for law enforcement or corporate espionage. The memorial pendant sat beside my keyboard open to expose the tracking chip. I'd spent 3 hours learning how the system worked, how GPS coordinates are transmitted, how to intercept and redirect the signal, how to feed false data without triggering alerts that would show I'd tampered with it. At 7:15 p.m., I initiated the spoof. The chip's real-time data showed my actual location, 3847 West 26th Street, Little Village. But the spoofed signal I was broadcasting to Mateo's tracking app showed something different. Gold Coast apartment. Our home, exactly where I was supposed to be. I tested it, walked to the window. The chip's coordinates updated to show me moving around our Gold Coast living room. I smiled. If he's watching this chip, I said aloud to the empty apartment, he thinks I'm home making dinner, watching TV, being the obedient wife. But tomorrow I would spoof it differently, show myself at my office, at the grocery store, following my normal Tuesday routine. While actually being here coordinating with Marisol, planning every detail of Thanksgiving Day. His surveillance tool had become his blindfold. I closed the spoofing software, opened my weather app, checked the 10-day forecast. A red alert banner appeared, severe winter storm warning. I clicked it. November 26th to 27th. Thanksgiving Eve into Thanksgiving Day. Major winter storm system moving across the Midwest. Heavy snow, high winds, travel advisories. Flights likely delayed or canceled. Roads potentially impassable. Arrival time in Chicago. 6 p.m., Wednesday, November 26th, 12 hours before Thanksgiving dinner. I stared at the forecast map. The storm system looked massive, stretching from Kansas to Michigan, a white wall moving east like a slow-motion avalanche. Timing is everything, I whispered. The storm created two possibilities. One, Mateo would be trapped at whichever location he chose for Thanksgiving. If he was at the Gold Coast apartment, he couldn't get to Little Village. If he was at Little Village, he couldn't get to Gold Coast. Our simultaneous confrontation would collapse. 2. The storm would force him to declare his priority. Which wife mattered more? Which home he'd choose when he couldn't travel between them? And we'd be waiting at both locations anyway. I pulled up the radar loop, watched the storm system move frame by frame across the map. The timing was almost poetic, a massive meteorological event arriving the exact night we'd planned our trap. Flights delayed, roads closed, alibis impossible. I said, watching the storm track. He'll be trapped wherever we corner him. I took a screenshot of the forecast, sent it to Faye with a single message, problem or opportunity. Her reply came 3 minutes later. Both, adjust plan, call tomorrow. Marisol emerged from the nursery, one hand on her belly. What's wrong? Storm, I said, showing her the radar. Thanksgiving Eve, major system, could shut down the city. She looked at the screen, watched the storm system pulsing on the map like a heartbeat. Good, she said finally. Good. He can't run if the roads are closed. He can't flee if the flights are grounded. The storm doesn't trap us, we're already in position. It traps him. She was right. The storm on the radar looked like a clenched fist moving across the Midwest, ready to close around Thanksgiving Day and squeeze. I saved the weather data, added it to our evidence folder. Another variable, another contingency. 8 days until Thanksgiving. 8 days until the storm arrived. 8 days until Mateo walked into whichever home he chose and found us waiting. He'll have to choose, I said. Which wife gets Thanksgiving dinner, which home he prioritizes, and whichever he picks, we'll be there, Marisol finished. Both locations covered, both traps armed, no escape. I looked at the weather radar one more time. The storm was beautiful in its certainty. No variables, no manipulation, just raw meteorological force following predictable patterns. Unlike Mateo, unlike his lies, unlike everything I'd spent 2 years trying to predict and control. But this I understood. Numbers, data, timing, systems. The GPS chip pulsed in its open pendant casing. Green light, steady, transmitting false data, telling Mateo I was exactly where he expected me to be. The storm would arrive November 26th at 6 p.m. The trap would spring November 27th at dinner time. And for the first time in 2 years, I knew exactly where every piece was positioned. Knowing where the pieces were positioned was one thing. Moving them into checkmate was another. Thursday night, November 20th. 8 days before Thanksgiving. But the storm forecast had changed everything. Faye had called that morning, storms getting worse. Meteorologists are saying possible blizzard conditions. If we wait for Thanksgiving, he might not be able to travel at all. We'd have one location, not two. Half a trap. So we move it up, I'd said. Tonight. While he still thinks he has 8 days. While he's still comfortable. While he's not watching as carefully. Now at 8:47 p.m., I sat in the little village apartment living room with Marisol. Rain tapped against the windows, the leading edge of the storm system still days away from its full force. I held the burner phone we'd found in Mateo's garage, the emergency phone, the one he thought was secret. I typed carefully, mimicking Marisol's texting style from messages we'd studied. Creditors found me. They're here now, demanding $180,000. Or they take everything, please, Mateo. I'm scared. Marisol watched over my shoulder. Will he believe it? He owes money to people who send creditors at night. He'll believe it because he's been expecting it. I hit send. The message delivered. Read receipt appeared instantly. He was looking at his phone. I opened the GPS spoofing app on my laptop. Watched Mateo's location in real time, the tracking chip in the pendant showing his movements. Gold Coast apartment, our bedroom, where he thought I was sleeping. Then movement. The dot started traveling, southwest, toward Little Village. He's coming, Marisol said. She poured tea with hands that shook slightly. I can feel it. Same way I always knew when he was lying. 32 minutes, I said, watching the GPS track. He's driving fast, probably thinks he's rescuing you. From creditors he created. Her laugh was sharp. From debts he owes. My phone buzzed. Text from Faye. Benedict in position, warrant signed. Archer 4 minutes out. Flashed twice when ready. No going back after signal. I stood, walked to the window. 2 blocks south, I could just make out the dark shapes of unmarked police cars. Engines off, waiting. Detective Benedict Dunn was in the lead vehicle. Fraud division, holding arrest warrants for bigamy, financial fraud, attempted murder. Everything we'd documented. Everything we'd proven. Dr. Archer was en route medical witness to Marisol's injuries, to her pregnancy, to the concussion that had put her in the hospital when Mateo's abuse had escalated. Everything aligned, everything ready. Except we'd moved the date up 8 days, and the weather was closing in, and Mateo was driving through rain thinking he was the hero. 28 minutes between sending the text and springing the trap, 28 minutes to maintain the performance while my husband drives toward his own arrest. I checked the GPS again. He was making good time despite the rain. 24 minutes now. Marisol stood beside me at the window. 7 months pregnant. The woman I'd been trained to see as my rival. Now my co-conspirator. When he walks through that door, she said quietly, I want him to see my face first. I want him to know I chose this. You'll see his face too when he realizes. Good. My phone, Archer 2 minutes out, ready. I looked at the GPS. Mateo 7 minutes away. 7 minutes until he parked. Until he ran up the stairs thinking he was saving Marisol from creditors. Until he burst through the door ready to be the hero of a crisis he'd created. I walked to the light switch by the window. The signal. 2 flashes and Benedict would move. Police would surround the building. The trap would spring. But Dr. Archer was still 2 minutes out. Still driving, still not in position. GPS Mateo 6 minutes away. Phone. Archer stuck at red light. 3 minutes now. No. The timing was falling apart. Mateo was driving faster than we'd calculated. Dr. Archer was delayed by traffic. The careful coordination was slipping. What's wrong? Marisol asked, seeing my face. Archer's delayed, 3 minutes, but Mateo's 6 minutes out. He'll get here first. Yes? We stared at each other. The apartment suddenly felt very small, very quiet despite the rain. Do we abort? She asked. And wait until when the storm's coming. We moved it up for a reason. Then what? GPS Mateo 5 minutes away, turning onto Western Avenue, almost here. Phone, Archer, 2.5 minutes, hold position. Hold position. Easy to say when you're not the one standing in the apartment waiting for your husband to walk through the door. I looked at the light switch. My hand hovered over it. 2 flashes. That's all it would take. Benedict would move. Police would come. But without Dr. Archer as medical witness, without that final piece of evidence in place, he's speeding. I said, watching the GPS dot move faster. He's actually speeding to get here. Marisol laughed, high and sharp. Of course he is. He thinks he's the good guy. GPS 4 minutes. Phone, Archer 2 minutes. 2 minutes, 4 minutes. The math was simple and terrible. Mateo would arrive 2 minutes before Dr. Archer. 2 minutes of us alone with him. 2 minutes before the trap was complete. Unless I signaled now, unless I brought the police in incomplete, unless I took the risk that we'd lose the medical witness testimony that tied everything together. Kezia, Marisol said, decide. GPS 3 minutes. He was flying through residential streets in the rain. I put my hand on the light switch. Felt the cool plastic under my palm. 2 flashes, that's all. 2 minutes and 15 seconds, that's what we needed to wait. But outside headlights appeared at the end of 26th Street. Earlier than the GPS predicted. He'd been speeding more than I'd calculated. Headlights, 26th Street. 7 minutes early wasn't accurate, he was here now. A car door slammed. My finger rested on the light switch. Mateo's footsteps pounded up the exterior stairs. Dr. Archer was still 2 minutes away. Benedict was waiting for my signal. Marisol was standing behind me, 7 months pregnant, about to face the man who'd put her in the hospital. Flash now incomplete trap. Wait, face him alone. Outside, keys jangled. He had a key. Of course he had a key to his other wife's apartment. The door handle turned. The door slammed open and Mateo stood there, dripping rain and panic, scanning for imaginary creditors. Then his eyes found me, found Marisol, found the marriage certificates side by side on the table. He froze. I didn't flash the light switch. Didn't signal Benedict and the police waiting 2 blocks away. Because Marisol was right, we wanted him to see this first. To understand. To feel what we'd felt when our worlds shattered. The arrest could wait 5 minutes. Kezia, he said, his voice sharp with confusion. Thank God. Where are the creditors? Are you hurt? Why are you? He stopped. His eyes had found Marisol sitting at the kitchen table. 7 months pregnant. In her own apartment. With me. Hello, Mateo, Marisol said. Her voice was steady cold. Or should I say, hello, husband, since that's what you call yourself in both our homes. Mateo's face cycled through emotions faster than I could track them. Confusion, recognition, calculation, fear. I watched him do the math, assess the situation, scan for exits. The same analytical process I'd seen him use when closing difficult real estate deals, except this time he was the one trapped in a bad contract. This isn't, he started. Marisol, you're confused. The concussion. You need to rest. Let me... Sit down, I said, pointed to the empty chair across from us. We have some things to show you. He didn't sit. Stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat onto the floor, creating a puddle, an evidence marker of his arrival. I can explain, he said. The classic opening, the gaslighter's first move. This isn't what it looks like. Really? I pulled the first file from my stack. Because it looks like you've been monitoring my every movement for 2 years. I slid the clear plastic baggie across the table. Inside the GPS tracking chip. The memorial pendant opened beside it, showing the fake ash compartment. This was in the pendant you told me contained your dead fiancé's ashes. Except she's not dead. I gestured to Marisol. She's sitting right here, 7 months pregnant with your child, and the ashes were flour. Mateo's eyes fixed on the chip. His face went pale. But that's not the interesting part, I continued, pulled the second file. The interesting part is what else was in those ashes. I slid Dr. Archer's report across the table. Arsenic. Not just in the fake ashes. In my blood. Systematic poisoning over 2 years. My mother died of organ failure last year. We had her cremated. But now we're exhuming her body. Because if you were poisoning me, who's to say you didn't start with her? His mouth opened, closed. No words came out. File 3, I said. Slid my marriage certificate across the table. Red cover. Official seal. October 2022. You and me, married. Then Marisol's. July 2022. You and her, also married. 3 months apart, I said. 2 counties, 2 ceremonies, 2 wives. That's called bigamy, Mateo. It's a felony. 8 months of performance collapsed into 5 minutes of truth. Every lie, every alibi, every gaslight extinguished by paper evidence. You're both being hysterical, he tried. His voice had an edge now, desperation creeping in. Let me explain. The marriages, one of them isn't legal. There was a problem with what? Marisol interrupted. With the fact that you were already married to me when you married her? Or with the fact that you told me she was your crazy ex-wife who was stalking you? I never. You did. I pulled out my phone, played a recording. Mateo's voice clear and damning. Don't answer if she calls, My ex-wife. She's obsessed, possibly dangerous. I had to get a restraining order. His face drained of color. There is no restraining order, I said. I checked. Just like there's no divorce decree. Just like there's no explanation for why you were withdrawing my money, forging my signature on mortgage documents, and maintaining 2 complete households for 3 years. I slid the bank statements across the table. Highlighted sections showing the systematic theft, the offshore transfers, the dual household expenses. File 5. I continued, my voice steady, clinical. Your mother's chemical orders, arsenic trioxide, purchased every 6 months for 2 years, small doses, just enough to keep me infertile, just enough to make sure I never got pregnant and complicated your access to my property. That's my mother didn't. She did. We have the receipts. The supplier confirmed it. Cash payments, delivered to a P.O. box in her name. I watched his face cycle through the stages, denial, calculation, rage, fear, like watching a building collapse floor by floor. Sweat soaked through his rain-wet shirt. His hands trembled. This is insane, he said. You've conspired against me. Fabricated evidence. I'll call my lawyer. Your lawyer won't help, Marisol said. Not with this much documentation. I pulled the final file, the thickest one, the one that had taken Faye 3 weeks to compile. Gambling debts, I said. $1.8 million owed to Xander Jarvis. They call him the Shadow. Very illegal, very dangerous. Payment due in 30 days, which was actually yesterday, wasn't it? I slid the casino markers across the table. The loan shark payment records, all bearing Mateo's signature. And this, I said, pulling the last document. Life insurance policy on me, taken out 6 months ago, $500,000, payable on death. I met his eyes. I have the receipts, Mateo, all of them. His face drained white. Not because of the gambling debt, not because of the bigamy charges or the fraud or even the attempted murder. Because the life insurance file had one more page, one more detail neither Marisol nor I were supposed to find. Beneficiary name, typed in official insurance company font. Not Mateo Farrell, someone else entirely. The beneficiary line reads, Cora Whitman, girlfriend. I watched the blow land. Mateo's face drained to chalk white, lips parting in genuine shock for the first time tonight. Not rage, not calculation, pure unfiltered panic. Who the hell is Cora Whitman? Marisol's voice cracks. I didn't look up from the policy document. 24-year-old graduate student at Northwestern, comparative literature. Lives in Evanston, 1847 Sherman Avenue, apartment 3C. She believes Mateo is a divorced consultant who travels extensively for work. There's a third woman. I said the words tasting like battery acid. Mateo surges to his feet chair, clattering backward. This is insane. You're all insane. I'm leaving. He makes it 3 steps before Marisol blocks the archway, arms crossed, shoulders squared. For a woman 7 months pregnant, she moves with surprising speed. Get out of my way, Mateo snarls. No. He pivots toward the front door. My voice stops him cold. I changed the locks this morning. All of them. Front, back, garage, sliding door to the patio. You're not going anywhere until we're finished. Mateo spins back, something feral flickering behind his eyes. For 5 seconds, nobody breathes. I can hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the distant hum of traffic on Lakeshore Drive, the thunder of my own pulse. Then his expression smooths, becomes almost serene. Fine. He settles back into the chair with unnatural calm, straightening his cuffs. You want the truth, I'll give you the truth. The hair on my arm stands up. This is wrong. This composure is worse than the rage. You were never real to me, he says, looking directly at me. Not as a person. You were a walking trust fund with legs. $2 million in assets I could access through marriage life insurance and a well-timed tragedy. That's all you ever were. The words should hurt. They don't. They're too clinical, too detached, like he's describing a stock portfolio. He turns to Marisol. And you, breeding stock. Your family's pharmaceutical money, your father's commercial real estate holdings worth substantially more than hers, honestly. I thought the pregnancy would accelerate the timeline, make the inheritance process cleaner when you died in childbirth. Complications happen. Malpractice is hard to prove. Marisol's hand flies to her stomach, protective, horrified. Neither of you was ever human to me, Mateo continues, voice flat and matter-of-fact. You were assets, investments, Numbers on a spreadsheet I was liquidating for maximum return. You poisoned me with arsenic, I say quietly. He shrugs. One shoulder casual. Small doses. Enough to make you sick, build a medical history of unexplained illness. When you finally died, it would look like natural causes, some rare condition the doctors missed. The life insurance pays double for accidental death, but standard payout was acceptable given the low risk. You bought a $2 million policy on my life 6 months ago. Obviously. Return on investment. I paid $8,000 in premiums stood to collect $2 million. That's a 24,900% return. Better than any hedge fund. My phone sits on the coffee table between us, screen dark, utterly innocuous. 38 minutes of recording. Every word, every casual admission of attempted murder. Cora was insurance, Mateo says. Diversification. If either of you figured it out before I could close, I needed a clean exit with liquid assets. She thinks I'm divorced, thinks we're planning a future. Young, trusting no family money but useful for the transition period. You don't feel anything, Marisol whispers. No guilt, no remorse. Why would I? You feel remorse when you've done something wrong. I executed a financial strategy. It didn't work clearly, but the plan itself was sound. He's proud, actually proud. The arsenic was elegant. He continues leaning back like he's discussing a successful merger. Tasteless cumulative mimics a dozen natural conditions. I researched for months. Cadmium was too traceable, thallium too fast-acting, antifreeze too obvious. Arsenic was the optimal choice. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my thighs. You married me to kill me for money. I married you to acquire assets through the most efficient legal mechanism available. Marriage provided access to your trust fund, your estate, your insurance payout. Killing you was simply the final step in the liquidation process. No hesitation, no humanity, just cold mechanical calculation. Marisol's crying, now silent tears tracking down her face. Kezia's expression is stone, but her jaw is clenched so tight I can see the muscle jumping. You plan to kill us both, Marisol says. Sequential execution was necessary. 2 deaths in close proximity would trigger investigation. I would have spaced them appropriately 18 months, maybe 2 years. Grieving widower remarries, second wife dies tragically, community sympathizes. It's a proven pattern. Proven pattern. Like he studied case files, researched successful murders. You're a sociopath, I say. I prefer rational actor. You attach moral weight to actions that are fundamentally economic. I simply remove the emotional interference that makes most people inefficient. My phone screen lights up for 3 seconds, a notification, or maybe just a proximity sensor. Mateo doesn't notice. He's too busy explaining with chilling precision exactly how he planned each death, each inheritance claim, each financial transaction that would follow. 38 minutes of confession, every detail, every cold calculation, every inhuman admission. Then his eyes drop to the phone, to the glowing screen that just went dark again. His face changes. You're recording this, he says flatly. Kezia doesn't answer. Illegal recording is inadmissible in court, Mateo says, but there's uncertainty creeping into his voice now. Illinois is a 2-party consent state. You can't use any of this. Kezia picks up the phone and for the first time tonight she smiles. Actually, she says, you might want to check your case law. But here's what you should really be worried about. This isn't just recording. She turns the phone so we can see the screen. Livestream, active 3847. Secure server upload 100%. Backup locations 3. Faye Lockwood, monitoring. It's been broadcasting to my colleague's encrypted server since you walked in the door, Kezia says softly. Faye's a digital forensics specialist, former FBI. She's been watching this entire time and she's already secured 3 separate backup copies in 3 separate geographic locations. Mateo's composure finally cracks. You can't, that's not Illinois, law requires. Does it? Kezia asks. Or are you thinking of a different statute? Illinois is a 1-party consent state. I say. His hand shoots across scattered insurance documents, knocking over the tea mug. Liquid spreads across the evidence files, amber bleeding into white paper. Marisol moves faster than any 7 months pregnant woman should. She slams her body between Mateo and me. Give me that fucking phone! Mateo snarls, shoving against Marisol's shoulder. She doesn't budge. 7 months pregnant, facing down the man who tried to kill her, and she holds the line. I can't move, can't breathe. My husband. The man I trusted with my life is trying to destroy evidence of his own attempted murder, while the woman carrying his baby blocks his path. My voice cuts through. It doesn't matter if you destroy this phone. The backup copies are already in 3 separate states. Faye has everything. Mateo freezes mid-lunge, understanding finally breaking through. There's no way out. No destroying evidence, no spinning the story, no escape route left. Then Marisol gasps. Not angry, not defiant. A sharp, wet sound that raises every hair on my neck. Her hand flies to her stomach. The other grabs the table edge for balance. Marisol. Kezia's tone shifts instantly from steel to alarm. Something's wrong. Marisol's voice is thin, breathless. I can feel, oh God. Her knees buckle. She goes down hard, one hand still pressed against her swollen belly, the other catching her fall against the chair. It scrapes backward, metal legs screaming against tile. When her hand comes away from between her legs, it's red. The moment shifts. Confrontation becomes catastrophe. Evidence files soaking in cold tea. Pregnant woman crumpling to kitchen tile. Window lamp still glowing from the double flash signal. And somewhere outside, help is coming but not fast enough. Kezia drops beside Marisol, hands hovering, assessing. Stay with me, breathe. Count with me in for 4, hold out for 4. The baby, Marisol whimpers. It's too early. 7 months, he can't. Mateo, Kezia snaps without looking up. Call 911, now. He doesn't move, just stands there frozen, staring at the blood spreading across tile. I lurch forward, grabbing my phone from my pocket, fingers shaking so hard I can barely unlock the screen. Kezia's already pulling dish towels from the drawer, pressing them gently between Marisol's legs. Ambulance is already coming. They'll be here soon. You're going to be okay. How do you know? Marisol's crying now, full sobs. Because I planned for this, I say quietly. Hendrix is 2 minutes away. Mateo finally speaks, voice hollow. Who the hell is Hendrix? I look up and there's fury in my eyes I haven't seen all night. My brother, he's a paramedic. He's been on standby since 10 p.m. He's the only person in my family I trust right now. I turn back to Marisol, one hand on her shoulder, the other keeping pressure on the towels. Then she looks at Mateo with pure contempt. Those prenatal vitamins you gave her. Kezia says each word precise and cutting. The ones you bought from some overseas website to save $40, the lab tested them. Mateo's backing away now, shaking his head. Lead, mercury, arsenic compounds. Kezia's voice never rises, never wavers. You've been poisoning your own baby, the one you claimed to want, the heir you said would secure Marisol's family money. I didn't know, Mateo stammers, feet finding the wall behind him. They were cheap, but I didn't think. You bought black market supplements to save money, Kezia says flatly. Didn't bother checking quality. Didn't care enough to spend $60 at CVS instead of $20 from a website with no FDA certification. You poisoned your own child through sheer negligent greed. Marisol's sobbing harder now, hands cradling her stomach. My baby is my baby, okay? The blood work from last week showed elevated lead levels, Kezia tells her gently. Dr. Archer flagged it. That's why we moved up the timeline tonight. We couldn't wait any longer, you needed to know, and he needed to be stopped before the poisoning caused permanent damage. I was kneeling, holding Marisol's hand while Kezia maintains pressure. The tile is cold and hard beneath my knees. The metallic smell of blood mixes with spilled tea and the faint chemical scent of printer ink from the scattered documents. Mateo's pressed against the wall, eyes darting toward the door. Calculating. Still calculating. Don't, Kezia says without looking at him. You take one step toward that door and I will make sure every news outlet in Chicago knows you tried to flee while your pregnant wife bled out on the floor. He freezes. Marisol's breathing is rapid, shallow. Her face has gone gray, pale, lips bloodless. The towels beneath Kezia's hands are soaking through red, spreading in bloom patterns. Stay with me, I whisper, squeezing her hand. Help is coming. You're going to be okay. My baby, she breathes. Please, my baby. Then I hear it. Boots on stairs, heavy multiple pairs pounding up from the ground floor, running. Mateo hears it too. His head whips toward the apartment door, animal fear flooding back. Marisol bleeding on kitchen tile, 7 months pregnant, fighting to keep her lead-poisoned baby alive. Mateo frozen against the wall, every exit blocked, nowhere left to run. And the sound of boots, police, paramedics, Kezia's brother all converging at once. Three catastrophes colliding in apartment 3847, and the door is about to explode inward. The door explodes inward. Detective Benedict Dunn and Detective Sandra Reyes from Violent Crimes filled the frame. Three uniformed officers surge past him, followed by Dr. Leland Archer carrying a medical kit. They take in the scene in seconds, Marisol bleeding on tile, Mateo backed against the wall, me kneeling beside her with towels soaked crimson. Paramedics now. Dr. Archer snaps, dropping beside Marisol. His hands move with practiced speed, checking pulse, pressing stethoscope to her swollen belly. Blood pressure's critical. Fetal heartbeat erratic. We need to move. Two more paramedics rush through the door with a gurney. One of them is younger than the others, maybe 38, with my sharp cheekbones and the same focused intensity, my brother Hendrix. He meets my eyes for half a second, acknowledgement, not greeting, then focuses on Marisol. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Hendrix asks, fingers finding her wrist. "We're going to get you to Northwestern. Your baby needs you to stay with us." Marisol nods weakly, tears streaming. Benedict's voice cuts through the chaos, flat and official. "Mateo Farrell, you're under arrest for bigamy, fraud, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder." Mateo doesn't move, just stares as the officers flank him. "You have the right to remain silent." Benedict continues, pulling handcuffs from his belt. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney." "This is insane," Mateo finally breathes. "You can't, there's no evidence." I stand, blood on my knees, and pick up the phone still live streaming on the table. Walk it over to Benedict and place it in his gloved hand. 38 minutes of recorded confession, I say quietly. Everything. The bigamy, the arsenic poisoning, the life insurance policy, Cora Whitman lead contaminated vitamins. He admitted it all. Benedict's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. Satisfaction, maybe, or vindication. "Illinois is one-party consent," I add. "I was present, I consented, it's admissible." The officer behind Mateo pulls his arms back, metal cuffs clicking into place. The sound is final, absolute. Mateo's staring at me now, not Benedict, not the phone, me. "You," he says slowly, understanding breaking across his face like dawn. "This whole time, you were never broken. You were hunting me." I meet his gaze and don't look away. 8 months, I tell him. I played your game for 8 months, pretended to be confused, scared, sick. Let you think the arsenic was working. Let you believe I was the perfect victim. His mouth opens, closes, no words left. "Every symptom I reported to Dr. Archer was documented," I continued. "Every financial transaction you made was tracked. Every lie you told Marisol, every promise you made to Cora, every dose of poison you fed me, all of it recorded, witnessed, verified." "You can't." "I already did." The paramedics lift Marisol onto the gurney, Hendrix maintaining IV line, while Dr. Archer keeps pressure on the hemorrhage site. She reaches for me as they wheel her past fingers, grasping air. I caught her hand squeezed once. "You're going to be okay, both of you." Then she's gone, gurney disappearing through the doorway with Dr. Archer and the medical team rushing behind. Benedict nods to his officers. They guide Mateo toward the door, hands cuffed behind his back, expensive suits rumpled and tea-stained. He looks back at me one last time. 8 months of control ended in 8 minutes of arrest. The predator caged by the prey who learned to hunt. Between the arrest at 11:47 p.m. and the NICU vigil at 1:15 a.m. lies 90 minutes of mechanical aftermath. Police statements in the Northwestern Memorial waiting room, evidence logged and photographed phone, downloaded onto 3 separate encrypted drives. 8 months of war, reduced to paperwork and procedure. I sit alone in the surgical wing hallway while Marisol fights for her life 3 floors above. Hendrix brings me coffee that tastes like metal and regret. Benedict takes my statement with a recorder running, professional and thorough. When the nurse finally tells me Marisol survived the emergency C-section, I don't feel relief. Just the absence of a fear I'd been carrying so long I forgot it had weight. The NICU is on the 4th floor. I take the stairs because the elevator feels too slow, too enclosed. My legs burn by the 3rd landing, but I don't stop. The viewing window is floor-to-ceiling glass, looking into a room full of incubators. Monitors beep in rhythmic patterns, oxygen pumps hiss, and tiny humans fight to exist in a world they entered too soon. Incubator 7, far right corner. Kai Irvine. Born 12:34 a.m. November 21st, 2025. 29 weeks gestation. 3 pounds 2 ounces. He's no bigger than my 2 fists pressed together. Tubes snake from his nose, his umbilical cord, his impossibly small veins. Monitors track heart rate, oxygen saturation, lead levels in his blood-lung development measured in milliliters of surfactant. His chest rises and falls with the ventilator's mechanical rhythm. Skin translucent enough to see blue veins beneath. Eyes fused shut, not ready to see the world that tried to poison him before birth. I press my hand against the glass. It's cold, sterile, separating me from this fragile life by inches that feel like miles. Your mom is in surgery recovery, I whisper. She's going to be okay. And your father is in custody for poisoning you before you were born. The ventilator hisses. Kai's tiny fingers curl in voluntary reflex. This is what 8 months bought, I tell him softly. Not revenge, not justice. This one tiny person who gets to exist without poison in his blood. The incubator hums like a promise. Artificial warmth protects fragile life until the world becomes safe enough to breathe unaided. I think about Mateo's face when he realized I'd been hunting him. The shock, the rage, the disbelief that his victim had teeth. That mattered. The arrest mattered. The confession, the evidence, the legal machinery grinding toward conviction, all of it matters. But this matters more. This 3-pound human is fighting for breath behind medical-grade glass. This innocent life I spent 8 months protecting through performance and planning and precision. You have 2 people in your corner now, I whisper, palm warm against cold glass. Your mom and me, we're not going anywhere. Behind me, footsteps approach. Soft-soled shoes on linoleum. I don't turn. Ms. Farrell, a nurse's voice gentle and measured. I have news about Marisol's surgery. The nurse's news was simple. Marisol survived surgery, stable condition, asking for me. 1 protector became 2 after all. Friday morning light filters through Venetian blinds in the Chicago Police Department interview room. Benedict Dunn slides a manila folder across the scratched metal table thick enough to require both hands. The fluorescent bulbs overhead hum like trapped insects. All 3 conspirators down, Benedict says, settling into the chair across from me. Case is airtight. I open the folder. Arrest reports, bank statements, supplier contacts, 18 months of evidence compiled while I was being slowly poisoned and didn't know it. 3. My voice sounds distant, clinical. The same tone I used when discussing arsenic absorption rates with Dr. Archer. Mateo's in custody on bigamy, fraud, attempted murder, and conspiracy charges. Benedict begins ticking off fingers. But he didn't work alone. He flips to a photo, paperclip to page 7. A woman, maybe 60, gray hair pulled back, severe thin mouth set in a permanent line of disapproval. I recognize her immediately. Family reunion 3 years ago, barely spoke 2 words to me. Zenobia Farrell, Benedict says. Arrested at her home yesterday afternoon. She supplied the arsenic. The room tilts slightly. Mateo's mother. The mother-in-law who sat at my dining table every Sunday for 3 years, who ate the meals I cooked, and asked with sympathetic eyes when I would finally give her son a child. We found her supplier contact, black market chemical distributor operating out of Gary, Indiana. Payment records going back 19 months. She bought the arsenic in small quantities shipped to a P.O. box, then transferred it to Mateo through dead drops in Lincoln Park. The taste in my mouth is copper and ash, family, my own blood. Why, I manage. Benedict's expression softens fractionally. Your trust fund named her as secondary beneficiary if you died without children. She would have received 20%, $400,000. Mateo promised her half his share if she helped. $400,000, the price tag for murdering your niece. How long were they planning this? My hands are flat on the table, steady despite the nausea rolling through my stomach. Based on the evidence, at least 18 months. Benedict pauses, lets that sink in. You started documenting 8 months ago. You were already dying and didn't know it. 8 months of performance. But 10 months before that, poison was already entering my system, accumulating in tissue and bone while I laughed at dinner parties and kissed my husband goodnight. Zenobia's cooperating, Benedict continues. Full confession in exchange for reduced sentencing. She gave up everything. Dead drop locations, communication methods, Mateo's insurance scheme with Cora Whitman, the plan to stage your death as medical complications. I flip through the folder. Zenobia's handwriting on ledger pages, noting dates and doses like a recipe. Mateo's emails discussing timelines and symptoms. Bank transfers coded as gifts, loans, family assistance. 18 months of conspiracy reduced to paperwork. There's more, Benedict says quietly. The prenatal vitamins Mateo gave Marisol, Zenobia sourced those too. Black market supplements cut with lead and mercury to save money. She knew they were contaminated. Sold them to Mateo anyway. His own mother poisoned her unborn grandson just to save her son $40. Between arrest and release lie 14 days of healing. Surgical wounds closing pink and tender. Lead flushing from infant blood through chelation therapy. Legal machinery grinding 3 conspirators into consequences they can't dodge or charm their way past. I spend those days in hospital hallways, courtroom waiting rooms, police stations providing statements and signing documents. Marisol recovers in room 4127, visited by her parents who fly in from Arizona, stone-faced and shaken. They thank me with the awkward formality of people who don't know how to express gratitude for preventing murder. Kai fights in his incubator. Every day the numbers improve: oxygen saturation up, lead levels down, weight climbing by ounces. December 5th arrives, cold and clear, winter sun glinting off Lake Michigan like fractured glass. Dr. Archer meets us in the NICU discharge room, tablet in hand, reading numbers that have become liturgy over 2 weeks. Kai's lungs are strong enough to breathe room air. Lead levels dropped from critical to manageable. He's a fighter. Marisol sits in the rocking chair, hospital gown, traded for real clothes color, finally back in her face. When the nurse places Kai in her arms, no incubator glass, no sterile barrier, just skin to skin, her whole body trembles. "You're going home, baby," she whispers, tears tracking down her cheeks. No more wires, no more machines, just us. Kai weighs 4 pounds now, still impossibly small, but his eyes open and focus. His fingers curl reflexively, seeking something to hold. I stand beside them, witness to this beginning. I fought 8 months to protect. The morning light through the window washes everything gold, mother-child, the second chance neither should have needed. Marisol looks up at me, and there's something raw in her expression. Gratitude mixed with grief, relief tangled with rage at what was nearly stolen. "Thank you," she says, "for everything, for seeing what I couldn't see, for saving both our lives." The words should feel bigger, carry more weight. But they're just words trying to hold an impossible thing. "We're equal," I tell her. "You stood between me and him when he lunged for the phone. You risked your baby to protect me. We saved each other." Kai makes a small sound, not quite crying, not quite cooing. His hand opens, tiny fingers spreading, then closes around Marisol's index finger. The grip is surprisingly strong for something so small, 4 ounces of new beginning proof that protection matters more than revenge. Dr. Archer hands me the discharge paperwork, standard forms, medication instructions, follow-up appointments scheduled through February. I'm halfway through the emergency contact section when I see it. Primary guardian Marisol Irvine, secondary guardian Kezia Farrell. My name in Marisol's handwriting is permanent ink on legal documents. I look up. She's watching me, Kai cradled against her chest, questions in her eyes she hasn't asked aloud. We survived the same predator, sat in the same apartment while evidence piled up, while the man who tried to kill us both confessed to treating us like livestock. We bled on the same kitchen floor, rushed to the same hospital, waited through the same desperate hours. But the crisis is ending. Mateo's in custody. Zenobia's awaiting trial. The conspiracy is dismantled. Normal life is supposed to begin now. Divorce proceedings, asset division, separate futures built from shared wreckage. Except Marisol listed me as her son's guardian. The question neither of us has asked suddenly demands an answer. What happens when the emergency ends and we have to decide what we are to each other beyond co-victims and temporary allies? The second beige trench coat goes into the black garbage bag first, followed by his slippers, his books, the electric razor from the bathroom drawer. Every physical trace of Mateo Farrell erased from the apartment that was supposed to be Marisol's hiding place. Mid-December afternoon light slants through the windows. Marisol moves through the bedroom, pulling clothes from hangers, emptying drawers, discarding everything that carries his scent or memory. Kai sleeps in the bassinet, tiny chest rising and falling. 4 weeks old, now gaining weight, lead levels dropping. He doesn't know we're erasing his father from these walls. He chose this blue, Marisol says, hand on the bedroom wall. The paint is slate blue, expensive, carefully selected. Said it was calming. I want gray, something I pick, something that's mine. She's 2 weeks out of surgery, still moving carefully, but there's steel in her spine when she lifts the paint roller. You don't have to do this today, I tell her. No. She pries open the charcoal gray paint, the smell sharp and chemical. I need to cover it myself. Every wall he touched, every choice he made for me, I'm painting over all of it. The victim becomes an architect. The woman who nearly bled out on kitchen tile wielding a paint roller to erase her abuser's aesthetic choices. I take the second roller and start on the opposite wall. We work in silence, gray covering blue in long strokes. The cologne smell still lingers in the closet, seeped into wood and drywall. The cologne is in the closet walls, I say. We might need to seal it. Marisol stops rolling, something fierce in her eyes. Good. Seal it. Bury it. Make it disappear like he tried to make us disappear. We're not cleaning. We're exercising. Every item in the garbage bag is a piece of him we're choosing to discard: the suits, the watch he wore when he proposed with lies in his mouth, the cologne that masked poison. When the first coat is finished, we open all the windows. December air rushes in cold and clean, sweeping through like absolution. Paint fumes dissipate. The apartment exhales. Marisol stands at the bedroom window, paint splattered and exhausted, breathing deep. Thank you, she says quietly. You already said that. I'll probably keep saying it. Between the garbage bag and the envelope lies the distance from survival to rebuilding. From erasing what was poisonous to accepting what might heal. Late December evening, Benedict Dunn arrives in civilian clothes carrying a legal envelope and a small bouquet of winter flowers, white chrysanthemums and red roses, simple and honest. Best case I've seen in 15 years, he says when I let him in. Thought you'd want the final update in person. Marisol appears from the kitchen, Kai against her shoulder. The apartment smells like fresh paint and soup. Benedict sets the envelope on the table. The court has frozen and is in the process of recovering $847,000 from Mateo's offshore accounts. Faye estimates full transfer within 18 months, but the court approved emergency disbursement for Kai's NICU costs, pending final settlement. Court approved asset seizure and restitution. Enough to cover your mortgage, Marisol's medical bills, and Kai's NICU care with substantial remainder. The number sits there solid and real. Financial restoration after 8 months of watching my assets drain into poison and lies. Mateo's arraignment is January 8th, Benedict continues. The prosecutor expects a plea deal, 25 years minimum, no parole for 15. Zenobia is looking at 12 to 18 as an accessory, both cooperating to avoid longer sentences. Justice grinding forward, not perfect but real. Cora Whitman, I ask, cleared of all involvement. No knowledge of the bigamy or conspiracy. We connected her with victim services. Another woman manipulated another life Mateo contaminated. At least she escaped with hers intact. Benedict shifts weight awkward in a way I haven't seen before. Professional Benedict is confident, measured, controlled. This version holds flowers uncertainly. These, he says, extending the bouquet toward me, aren't evidence. I take them, petals soft against my fingers, stems wrapped in brown paper. They smell like winter gardens and possibility. They aren't evidence, I repeat. No. His expression is careful, gentle. There's something else, if you want them to be. The statement hangs between us. Not pressure, not demand, just an offer extended without expectation. Marisol's voice carries from the kitchen. Leave the door open when he goes. It's stuffy in here. Benedict smiles, small and genuine. Good instinct. He leaves the legal envelope on the table, recovery documents ready for signature. Leaves the flowers in my hands. Leaves the possibility undefined and gentle. When he reaches the door, he pauses. Take your time, with everything. No rush on any of it. Then he's gone, footsteps echoing down the stairwell, and the door stands open. I find a water glass for the flowers, set them on the kitchen table next to the envelope and Kai's bassinet. Marisol rocks the baby, slowly humming something soft. The door stands open. December air flows through apartment 3847, cold and clean and free. For the first time in 8 months, nobody needs to close it or hide or perform. We can just breathe. Marisol looks up at me, Kai sleeping against her chest, and something passes between us that doesn't need words. Not quite family. Not quite friendship. Something new built from shared survival and mutual rescue, and the choice to stay when staying wasn't required. You should put those in water, she says, nodding toward the flowers. I did. Actual water, in a vase, not a drinking glass. I don't have a vase. We'll get one. The word sits there simple and enormous. The flowers wait on the table, white and red against winter light. Benedict's offer written in petals, patient and unhurried. The recovered funds are waiting for signature financial foundation for whatever we build next. Kai breathing soft and steady, 4 pounds heavier than the fragile life we fought to protect. And the door standing open. December twilight settling over Little Village, fresh air flowing through rooms that don't need barriers anymore. 3 people breathing in an apartment built for hiding, finally safe enough to leave everything open. The future unwritten. The ending is just beginning. Pink-cheeked and strong-lunged, no visible trace of the leg that nearly killed him before birth. He grabs at the winter air with mittened hands, making small sounds of discovery at every bird and branch. Marisol walks beside me, hands wrapped around a travel mug of tea breath, misting in the cold. We've fallen into this routine Saturday mornings in the park, walking the paved paths, while the city wakes up slow and quiet. National Louis has a night program for early childhood education, Marisol says. I want to work with kids who've been through trauma. I understand it now. She's healing. Physically, emotionally, in ways that can't be rushed. The surgical scar is still pink and tender, but her eyes are clearer than they were in November. You'd be good at that, I tell her. 3 clients already lined up for the consulting practice, she asks, deflecting. 4 as of yesterday. Turns out 8 months of tracking a bigamist's finances is excellent marketing for forensic accounting. She laughs, real and unguarded. The sound carries across frozen grass. Across the playground, Benedict Dunn crouches beside the jungle gym, watching his daughter navigate the climbing bars. Una is 7, careful and observant, like her father testing each handhold before committing weight. His son Crew, 5 years old and methodical, examines the slide's surface for ice before attempting descent. Benedict sees us waves casually. No pressure, just presence. I wave back and something warm unfolds in my chest that has nothing to do with the coffee I drank an hour ago. He's here every Saturday, Marisol observes, voice carefully neutral. So are we. Funny how that works. Una finishes her climb, and spots Kai's stroller runs over with the enthusiastic energy of a child who's decided a baby is interesting. Can I say hi to Kai? Of course, Marisol says. Una peers into the stroller, making exaggerated faces that pull a gurgling laugh from Kai. Her brother joins her, more reserved, studying the baby with scientific curiosity. He's bigger than last time, Crew announces. He's growing, I agree. Benedict approaches, hands in coat pockets, expression warm. They've been asking about him all week. Not asking about me, about Kai. Building connection through a 2-month-old who drools and grabs fingers and exists without agenda or performance. It's the slowest courtship I've ever witnessed, and maybe that's exactly what I need. Between the park morning and the evening text lies the distance from survival to rebuilding. From learning to breathe again to choosing what comes next. From emergency to normalcy. From performance to something terrifyingly real. That evening, Kai sleeps in his bassinet while Marisol and I drink tea at the kitchen table. The apartment smells like the soup she made earlier, rich and savory, nothing like the cold takeout we survived on in November. My phone buzzes, text from Benedict. Kids asked if Kai is coming next weekend, maybe me too. Good night, Kezia. I stare at the screen. 12 words carrying weight they shouldn't hold. Marisol glances at my face at the phone, says one word, reply. I type, that would be nice. Delete it, too formal. Type, Kai would love that. Delete it, deflecting through the baby. Type, we'd both like that. Delete it, sounds desperate. Marisol's watching me over her tea mug, not saying I told you so, but radiating it anyway. I type, the simplest truth will be there. Hit send before I can reconsider. Marisol smiles into her tea. See, not so hard. Terrifying, actually. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? I consider it. After 8 months of poison betrayal and attempted murder, texting a detective about a park playdate should register as negligible risk. But vulnerability isn't measured in arsenic doses or offshore accounts. It's measured in texts you can't unsend and futures you can't control. Good terrifying, I admit, I think. Late at night, the apartment is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and Kai's soft breathing through the baby monitor. I stand at his crib watching 2 months of life sleep with absolute trust. His chest rises and falls steady as a metronome, breath like a balanced ledger, each inhale matched by exhale, everything reconciled. I remember 24 negative pregnancy tests, 24 mornings of disappointment I thought were losses. I didn't know I was grieving a future with a man who was poisoning me, mourning babies that would have been conceived in contamination. I remember the cold hospital chair where I first suspected. The computer screen documents betrayal in bank transfers and duplicate addresses. The GPS chip hidden in my mother's urn. The storm-soaked November night, when everything converged in apartment 3847. None of it led where I imagined. But here I stand with my hand on this baby's back, feeling the rise and fall of lungs that shouldn't have survived, protecting a child who shares no DNA with me, but became mine anyway, through shared catastrophe and deliberate choice. This isn't the baby I imagined. This isn't the family I planned. This isn't the life I wanted 8 months ago. But it's real, and it's tested, and it's earned. Marisol's getting her degree. I'm building a practice. Benedict's children ask about Kai like he's already part of their constellation. And this baby, this impossible lead-poisoned premature precious baby, breathes steady as mathematics. Your mom is getting her degree, I whisper to sleeping Kai. Your honorary aunt is building a business. Your maybe future uncle has nice kids. And you're breathing steady as a balanced ledger. We're all going to be fine. His tiny hand curls reflexively around my finger. The grip is stronger than last week, stronger than last month, stronger than the day he was born fighting for air. I turn off the nightlight. Through the nursery window, January sky shows the first bare hint of stars. Winter holds the city in its grip, but somewhere beneath frozen ground, spring gathers itself with the patience of things that know they're inevitable. The family I have now chosen, unexpected, built from wreckage and mutual rescue, is better than the imagined future I mourned losing. Because this one is real. This one survived poison and came out breathing. My hand rests on Kai's back, feeling the steady rhythm. Each breath is a victory. Each moment proved that protection mattered more than revenge. That survival was only the beginning, that the chosen family is stronger than biology, or marriage certificates, or any future I could have planned. The window glass is cold against my palm when I press it one last time, looking out at January stars scattered thin above the city. 2 years ago, I stood at a different window waiting for a man who was never coming home the way I imagined. I didn't know that waiting was the wrong verb. The right verb was building slowly, quietly, with the people who chose to stay. Benedict, Marisol, Kai. A practice taking shape. A life assembled from wreckage and made stronger for it. Some foundations crack under pressure. Others only reveal their true depth when tested. Ours was tested. We held. The nightlight clicks off. Winter prepares to become February, deciding whether to fight or yield. And somewhere beyond the city lights, spring waits ready to arrive, whether winter is ready or not. And to you listening to my story, remember this: trust is sacred, but blind trust can be deadly. Don't make my mistake. I ignored the warning signs because I loved him. The tea that tasted wrong, the unexplained absences, the life insurance policy I never requested, every red flag was there, but I chose to believe in the man I thought I married. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any stranger's deception because it comes from the person who promised to protect you. I learned the hard way that sometimes the people closest to us are capable of the darkest things. The lesson isn't about family revenge, though justice mattered. It's about recognizing when someone sees you as a transaction instead of a person. Family betrayal doesn't always announce itself, it hides behind affection. But here's what I know: when you survive something meant to destroy you, you discover unexpected strength. I believe God allowed me to see the truth before it was too late. That 8 months of documentation saved not just my life, but Marisol's and Kai's too. Sometimes what feels like family revenge is really just choosing to live when someone chose your death. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever faced family betrayal or witnessed family revenge in your own life? Leave a comment below and share your story. If this resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Her Revenge for more stories about people who refuse to stay victims. Your support means everything to this community we're building together. Thank you for staying until the very end. This story combines real experiences with fictional elements for storytelling purposes. What matters is the message: you are stronger than what tries to break you.